Okay. And we should be live, although I find that there's actually a lag to this when it says you're now live to when it actually goes live, and we'll see when I actually check this later on to see what's what. But yeah, Merry Christmas, everyone. This isn't actually I have a funny, quick story anecdote about this image real quick, but I'm gonna make sure we're live before I tell it. Okay. Okay, we should be good. Okay, so I'm not sure what's happening, but we might have Sargon and a couple people joining in like an hour, but I don't know just yet. We'll just have to wait and see, because I understand everyone's with their families and all that, and thankfully with my family, like, if you combine my mother and I, we basically become Larry David in terms of our, like, general neuroticism, and in our family, we do everything a day early. So every birthday is celebrated the day before, every holiday is celebrated the day before. That is a weird aspect to my family. And so everything Christmas-wise has been done yesterday. Okay. Anyways, to tell the anecdote of this image, so I thought to myself, what is a good image for this stream that I can have in the background just so you're not looking at my desktop? And I said, well, I'll get up Yuri image. And so I was like, well, I know there's what's the name of the character? Tushno Kuko, however you say her name. I know she dresses in a Santa outfit at some part of, like, I think the first season. So let me find an image from that. And this is actually drawn by the author that illustrates the show. But I was like, wait a minute, isn't there another one that I could use? And I found it. And I was like, oh, here it is. Let me take a quick look at it. And I was like, oh, yeah, I probably shouldn't use this image. This image is probably going to get me age-gated, which has happened in the past, because this is slightly suggestive. So instead of using those two images, we're going to use this image, which is actually pretty well done for the background image. So yeah, as of right now, I'm just going to be bullshitting for the most part, because I'm waiting to see if anyone else is going to join in a little while, because they're apparently either busy or getting food or whatever, so I'm kind of just hanging out for now. But I was considering talking about what happened on Twitter, because for some reason, it looks like we don't got any admins in here, or wrenches, any mods in here, so I guess I'll have to watch the chat itself to make sure things don't get banned. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, the Twitter drama. I almost forgot. So yesterday I posted. Let me find the tweets from yesterday, because I was at my parents' house and we just finished eating, and I don't even remember what spurred me on to do this, but I was just bored. We were going to open presents, and I was just like waiting. Yeah, I can't say for certain what spurred people on to get. Oh, you know what? I think this may have been the culprit right here. The Libertarian Party sent this thing on Christmas Eve that says, whatever you think of the rise of Skywalker, never forget the only reason Palpatine was able to rise to power was because of the erosion of political safeguards and inflation of executive powers that the Galactic Senate afforded him. And it's like, well, I mean, yes, but that's only half. I mean, you got to understand that the Galactic Republic is exactly like the EU. It is a neoliberal intergalactic state. Part of the reason why the Republic is so weak is because it is in fact delegated so much power to the democratic vote. Like, even if you were to take this seriously, there is a strong case, and I'm more than willing to make the case, for why the Republic is bad and weak. I mean, it's exactly like what you would imagine a collection of European states would wind up with. Like, it's in many ways like the EU. It's corrupt, endless. Like, every portrayal of the Republic shows it to be utterly ineffective, incompetent, corrupt, and it's basically, it can do nothing against megacorporations, the exchange, which is like a criminal syndicate. It's seemingly unwilling to enforce laws based around goods. Smugglers are, all over the place in the Republic, and it's a lucrative business to be in. And part of it's just getting around taxes, as far as if I understand it correctly. So it's like, the problem with the Libertarian Party is that they would basically be dead in the Star Wars universe. And the alternative is effectively the EU. That is basically what the Republic is. And we only know, we know a lot about the Empire in terms of its structure and the evils that it does, but the problem with the Republic is that it is just an ineffective system that, when push came to shove, gave dictatorial powers to Palpatine. And if you compare that to the Old Republic version of it, it's not really much different. It's still just as ineffective. The only reason why the Republic is not totally defeated in the Old Republic version of events is because it's just pure numbers. It's a numbers game that, prior to the the sacking of Coruscant, the Jedi weren't even in the at the the tip of the spear, like the vanguard of forces. It was pretty much up until the point that the Empire had forced the Republic into a truce, into negotiations, that the Jedi had even actually taken up the fight. And that's part of the reason why the Republic is so ineffective, is that the Jedi basically just step aside and allow all of the corruption, bureaucracy, and incompetence just to exist. Whereas with the Sith, at least, despite the issues with the Sith, many, in fact, want the Empire to be effective. That is one of the pursuits that they engage in, is making the Empire more effective. Whereas with the Jedi, they don't care. It's hands-off, and has always been, regardless of which era we're talking about. And I mean, if you play Star Wars: The Old Republic on the Republic side, and I'm trying to remember which storyline shows it the best. It may be Trooper, but the Republic is basically, it's not as evil as the Empire, but it is more corrupt. Despite everything wrong with the Empire, the Republic is more corrupt. I mean, even so-called reformers in the game are portrayed as corrupt and doing evil and doing things for for reasons that are self-aggrandizing and self-promoting. So if you want to take this seriously, it's like, I don't even think you have much of a case to defend the Republic, because the Republic is not liberal. To our knowledge, the Republic is not based on a set of civil liberties that are written into law. Like, as far as we know, there is no galactic constitution for enumerated rights. There's none of that. It's just claims of freedom and rights. You know, and what comes from that is, you know, unlimited smuggling, spice dealing, and corruption. And, you know, mega corporations and syndicates that the government is in essence, unable to check. No, in terms of slavery, the Republic basically is opposed to it, but I don't know if it actually has some kind of, like, intergalactic mechanism to deal with it. Because with the Republic, they don't really have much in the way of, like, intergalactic federal bureaucracy outside of the bare minimum of trade and taxation. Like, that's the only thing in the military. Like, that's the only thing that's actually portrayed. There's nothing in terms of criminal, you know, anti-criminal activity that's shown outside of, like, planetary forces, like planetary police forces. And they're totally ineffective as far as we can tell. So anyways, getting back to this, so I pretty much make the point to say that in the Star Wars universe, the Republic is a disaster. Despite the so-called freedoms that citizens may have, it's never really portrayed whether it's enumerated rights or it is simply those rights exist so long as the Intergalactic Senate, or the Galactic Senate, rather, declares you're allowed to have them. Like, we don't actually know what the rights are. And I say in response, Empire is the lesser evil, changed my mind. And I think that there is a case for that. The problem with the Empire is mostly to do with the Sith, regardless of which iteration. It's usually the Sith that are the problem. It's not the military. And that is the overwhelming majority of what composes the Empire. It's not the Sith. It's Sith citizens, or Imperial citizens in the military. That is the bulk of Imperial forces. It's not the Sith. Sith are a minority. They are the ruling minority, but, you know, the aristocracy, but they're not the majority. And that's typically where most of the faults come from. And at the end here, I say, when a smuggler enters Imperial space with spice as his cargo, and I have a picture here of Duterte from the Philippines, who was basically well known as like an anti-drug crusader. And if you can't tell, like, most of this is tongue-in-cheek. You know, I'm invoking a meme. And I'm pointing to, like, it just, like, I'm not saying it is a more moral system. I am saying it is a more effective system. The Empire is a more effective system than the Galactic Republic. And I believe that to be true, based on my knowledge of reading an entire, you know, shelf worth of books, playing every game. I even had a series of the Old Republic comics. I'm not necessarily saying that the Sith are more moral than the Jedi. I am saying that the Empire is a more effective system than the Republic, because it is. But anyways, that's really not what you're here to see. That's what kicked it off. And so overnight, I had a bunch of people responding to this that were not followers of mine. It was just random people that don't follow me. And some of them were, like, as far as I can tell, just leftist spurgs. Those were a few of them. But I also got some, like, ANCAP fucking tards. That was a good portion of them as well. It was like 4 or 5, like, anarcho-capitalist spurgs. But aside from the ANCAP spurgs and the leftist spurgs, Uh, apparently this guy is somebody. I have no idea who he is. Someone referenced him as if there's somebody, so I don't know who they are. But I do know who Matt Jarbo is. So, unfortunately with Matt, it's like, here's another guy who I used to be on good terms with. This is another guy who I used to be on good terms with. And unfortunately, it's just like, everyone who used to be part of what was called the skeptic community, all of them, with limited exceptions, have turned their back on me. And, it's just whatever, you know? Or in the case of someone like Matt, I basically just, it was the same with what happened with Kraut. I just had to walk away. You know, I just had to say, like, listen, you've gotten yourself into too much trouble. You've done some bad things, and you've kind of become irrational, and I just need to walk away. And with Matt, let me find the tweets that he put, so that way I can respond directly to them. By the way, if you didn't notice, I slipped in Diversity in Comics iron sights on that shelf. I saw it on another shelf, and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to slip this on in here. No one saw it, though. It's unfortunate. Let me see if I can find Matt's tweets so we can go through them. It's got to be a reply. I can't find the original. I can't find the original. Alright, fuck it. I'll just go to this, because I can't find the original tweet. So he took issue with me saying that, you know, calling myself a liberal or whatever. He took issue with me, like, seemingly endorsing the Empire, even though, like I said, I never said it's a more moral system. I just said it's a more effective system, and it is. And he says, you know, I'm pretty sure the Empire would disavow Loli, which would immediately make Louis join the Hutts and start smuggling the hardcore stuff. Louis here seems to go against the free market, which would allow Loli to exist. Kind of seems he's working against self-interest. I'm not a conservative. You know, like you said, holy shit, conservatives. I'm not a conservative. I've said that many times. Anyone who follows me who is a conservative realizes that I'm not a conservative, because I so often say it. The issue here is that Loli doesn't exist in Star Wars because there is no Japan in Star Wars. Unless you can show me where in the galactic map there's fucking Nippon, I don't really know how to argue against your position of, well, they would ban Loli. What Loli? What Loli exists in Star Wars? Like, there are the one chick from that prequel era Star Wars that I didn't watch. That chick is a Loli technically, but I'm talking about the actual content, and so are you. The problem with it is that it doesn't exist. And by the way, when you say one child, like, this is what I can't stand. And in real-life dictatorships like the Empire, you get mass genocides, mass starvation, gulags, one-child policy. Well, here's the problem. Like the Empire, which Empire are we talking about? Because, as far as I can tell, if we're talking about the Old Republic, it is, in essence, an aristocracy. Because in the Old Republic era, the Emperor goes off and abandons the Empire to create whatever the offshoot is. I forget what it's called in the game, but he goes off and he just goes and starts a new empire. So he abandons the Sith Empire. He abandons it. And what's left is the Dark Council. The Dark Council is what runs the Sith Empire after the Empire or the Emperor disappears. So it is not it's not a dictatorship. Under Emperor Palpatine, it is a dictatorship. But in the Old Republic, it's not. It's an aristocracy. Mass genocides, yes, but that's arguably for both sides. Mass starvation, yes, arguably for both sides. Gulags, in the storyline, it's true for both sides. One-child policies, what? Mass spying, both sides. Wars, both sides. Police state, both sides. Censored media, both sides. More slavery, that's kind of a complex question. Genital mutilations, what? And terrorism, that's true for both sides. So, if you want to argue the lore of Star Wars, know the lore of Star Wars. I don't know what is probably, some guy who's 40 years old and is, obsessed with it, but I obviously know it better than you. When you're arguing this bullshit, like, one-child policies, just what? Genital mutilations, what? What the fuck are you talking about? What is your point? Hashtag, what is your point? What are you talking about? But to Matt's point, you're being very specific to Loli. Loli doesn't exist in Star Wars. What makes you think that the Republic would allow it either? What about the Republic tells you that it would allow it either, when there's nothing that I see that would say it would allow it? It may be an illegal product that the government, in effect, would have no actual means by which to prevent. So it would just give more influence to the exchange. It would give more influence to the criminal organized syndicates. It would give more power to smugglers. So don't step up and say to me, like, oh, what about this or that? Because it's like I had one fucking retard reply to Matt, and he's like, oh, this guy's a fake fucking fan. And it's like, he goes, I really hate it when people like Louis, they can't just wait to throw anything to the altar of their agenda, which is ironic. Like, I'm on Twitter, like, at my parents' house, laying on the couch shitposting. They cry about the left who does that. I would bet Louis wouldn't even touch Star Wars if it wasn't the cool hip thing. Like, you don't watch my channel and you know absolutely nothing about me. To think that anything that I talk about is something I'm not concerned about, that it's something I don't care about. The things I don't care about, NASCAR, sports, the things I actively don't talk about, those are the things I don't care about. The things I do talk about are the things I care about. So, unfortunately, in this situation, it's just a matter of, like, people who don't know me that think that just lying about me and smearing me in stupid ways means anything to me outside of, like, I'm just gonna laugh at you. Because it's so ridiculous how often people come to me on Twitter, and it's why occasionally I have to block some people. Because I don't want Spurgs following me. I don't want Spurgs following me that are just gonna, every once in a while, go off on a fucking insane tangent and just spray shit in my direction. Because they're addicted to Twitter and they got nothing better to do than to freak out on me for absolutely no reason. And based on this, I had to block like 2 retards. One of which was like just spurging out totally. And I was like, dude, I don't know, like, why are you getting so worked up about fucking my Duterte memes? Like, what is wrong with you? I just don't get it. And by the way, what's funny is that, like, in the context of Star Wars, like, spice is basically fucking heroin. Like this guy here, Radical Liberty, like, oh, if there's free markets, what is there to smuggle? Heroin! That's effectively what we're talking about in the context of Star Wars. And no, if we were in the Star Wars universe, I would not support the legalization of fucking heroin, or the equivalent being spice. It should be illegal. It's awful. And if you play the Old Republic game, like, half of what you do on Coruscant is combating fucking just random militias, random syndicates, random criminal groups that are all peddling one fucking product, and it's spice. And they don't go as far as portraying what it would look like, but it's effectively like, what would it be? The world of RoboCop and like the intro to fucking Demolition Man. Like, that is what Coruscant looks like because of the criminal syndicates. And this is their biggest product. Like, it's not a good thing. It's not something I don't think should be legal. I don't think heroin should be legal. And it's because of the destructive capacity of it. This isn't the same as, oh, bro, legalize weed. This is something that's effectively disastrous. And is extremely addictive. So I don't really understand what people are arguing. Yeah, exactly. Z-Star says Star Wars needs a space Duterte. Well, it's because, dude, the reason here we go. This is the problem. The reason why people like Duterte exist, who could be like a quasi-fascist, politician. I don't really know. I don't really know that much about Duterte. He could be a fascist. The way you get fascist politicians is by the failure of leftist politics. That's how you get fascists, is the failure of leftist politics. And I'm sure it's true regardless of whether it's the Philippines or if it's South America or if it's Star Wars. It's just something that is just is unfortunately with George Lucas, I don't think that's actually what he wanted to portray, because I don't think when it comes to Star Wars, I don't think George Lucas is much of a deep thinker. If you were to ask me like what I actually like more by Lucas, it's probably going to be Indiana Jones. And that's just him recycling like old serials from the 40s. And Star Wars isn't much different either from like old World War II films. Like there's scenes just taken directly out. But so it's not really, there's not a lot of thought put into it. But one of the problems that's wrong with Star Wars, the inescapable issue with it, is that he created the universe and he created the Galactic Republic as, in effect, just a completely ineffective bureaucracy that is seemingly powerless to stop criminals. I don't think it's fair to call George Lucas a Marxist. I think he's a collectivist. I don't necessarily know that he's a Marxist. But I would say based on what is Jediism is in effect like dispassionate collectivism. And there's a lot of that in Star Wars if you pay attention. But it's not like necessarily like all that bad. It's not something I find particularly offensive, but it's just a matter of, like, I don't really think you can look at, like, every one of the new, like, versions of the game point to the fact that both the Republic, the Jedi, the Sith, the Empire have problems. Every new iteration of the game outside of, like, crap probably from, like, EA, they all illustrate the fact that both systems are flawed, and that both philosophies of Sith and Jedi are flawed. And with the Jedi, it's inherently contradictory. Like, what the Jedi believe. It is inherently contradictory. You cannot have, like, a form of, like, warrior pacifism. That's impossible. And yet that is, in effect, what it is. I don't really know what to say other than, like, if you take this seriously, and you know the lore, you should know enough to realize that the Jedi in the Republic are flawed, and they're not perfectly moral. The Jedi, in my view, are more moral, often, not always, but more often than the Sith, because the Sith can justify a great deal of evil and just the empty pursuit of power for its own sake. The issue is that there is an ideal form of both iterations of Sith and Jedi. With the Sith, there are versions of it where it is more predisposed towards a sort of like warrior monk status, and the same goes for the Jedi. You have the same kind of warrior monk status. It's just a question of basically what you get in the end. And I really don't think that it's fair just to act as though that the Jedi in the Republic are always the good guys, just based on the empty portrayal of the prequels. Because I think, honestly, that's what people are going with. Based on this sort of haphazard depiction of the prequels, that is supposed to be like, obviously, the Jedi are the good guys. Even though, because of the Jedi's weakness, it results in Anakin becoming evil, a dark Jedi, and massacring a bunch of little kids. And him killing his own pregnant, like, quasi-wife. Like, that is the end result of the failure of the Jedi. He kills all his masters except Yoda, who goes into hiding, and he kills a bunch of kids, and they can't protect anyone. I don't really think you can make a strong case for the Jedi being, like, completely good, because they're not. Their philosophy is utterly flawed. And that's the thing, I mean, like, if you read, like, the books after the movies, like the original 3 movies, the books that come after that, that's addressed over and over and over and over again in the books. Like, that is one of the main, like, that was the former lore of Lucas books, was fucking, Luke Skywalker having to come to terms with the fact that the Jedi philosophy is utterly fucking flawed. That's the entire, like, that's his entire storyline once they blow up the Death Star for the second time. That's his entire storyline, is dealing with the Jedi, like, what to do with the Jedi. What does he do with the Jedi philosophy? Now that he's, like, the last standing fucking Jedi, when the philosophy's utterly flawed. What do you do with it? So, yeah, to me, this is kind of just empty. Like, this is really niche shit. And I don't appreciate people talking to me as if I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about. When I have read so many of these books, some good, some being awful. Some of the most, like, celebrated ones, like the Thawne series, it's a hard read. It's a thick read. It's not paced very well. So half of the books from Lucas books back in the day, some of the oldest ones, are just based around the fact that the Jedi philosophy is utterly flawed. So to me, it's like, yeah, well, you're wrong for saying that the Empire is a more effective system. It's like, yeah, in the context of the fucking universe, bullshit am I in the wrong? The Republic's a fucking disaster in every iteration of it. The only way that you can say it's better is that it doesn't flame out like the fucking every empire. Every iteration of the Sith Empire flames out. That's the only way in which you can say that it's a less effective system. Anyways, I got some super chats. What do you think of the revisionist hagiography of certain black criminals? Centola Brown, Central Park 5, Meek Mill, how would you discourage it? I'm not really sure how I would discourage it. The worst example is probably, I mean, I don't recall these names, like Centola Brown. I know the name, I don't remember it. Meek Mill, I don't remember it. But the Central Park 5 is basically they were all found guilty and then were exonerated only in the media by a settlement they got from New York State. And it is because of, it's just vote buying efforts from the state, as far as I can tell. It's just Andrew Cuomo, Bill de Blasio in the state itself trying to buy black votes. And it's not like, it's not their money. What do they give a shit? It's taxpayer money, so who cares? As far as I can tell, the Central Park Five are guilty as sin. And I'd recommend you go watch Atheism is Unstoppable's videos on it. Because I think he makes a pretty good... the problem with Devin is that he can get a little bit too emotional in his arguments. Like, he'll use emotionally based arguments for the sake of an argument. And I don't think that... it's necessary. I understand why he does it, because it has impact to it, and I think that part of what he does with his channel is entertainment, and I can't exactly fault him for that with my content. But even if you were to say, oh, well, guilty on the emotion-based arguments, there's an entire onslaught of evidence as it relates to the Central Park Five that says that they are, in fact, guilty. To the degree that all of them are guilty, we don't know. Only they truly know, and they're all liars. So we don't know to the degree that which one of them raped the girl that they raped on the bike path and in the Central Park. We don't really know to the degree that which one's responsible for the rape, but we do know that a rape happened. The five were participants. And there were people that were uninvolved that put them there at the time that it happened. So there is direct evidence, and they testified against one another. They ratted each other out. So, and it was unprompted as well. So we know that the Central Park Five are guilty. It's just a matter of to what degree that they are guilty. But in terms of the other names, I'm sorry, but I don't remember them. Yoro says, just got here. Merry Christmas, Louis. Merry Christmas to all of you. Cow says, Merry Christmas from South Florida. 75. Oh, man, fuck you. 75 at the beach. I'll crack a cold one for you. Cows are big. Thanks for the support. Fuck you. Get out of here. I'm going to fucking, time you out of the chat so you can go away. I don't want to hear about it. 75 in fucking Florida, you piece of shit. Howdy Doodly Champion says, Merry Christmas, you weeb, thank you. Oren says, it's common for YouTuber essayists like Linkara and Jim Sterling to consider the First Order to be space Nazis, although the staff is very diverse. Yeah, I took a real offense when it wasn't Eric Kane that tweeted this out. Well, he tweeted it out, but he's not the author. There were a few articles that came out that said that the New Order was a white supremacist organization, and then it basically said the Empire in general is like a white supremacist organization. And I took real offense to that, because that to me is just biggest red flag, fake fan. Fake nerd, fake fan, no idea what you're talking about. Because the Empire is a human supremacist organization. And I absolutely stand by it being a human supremacist organization. Because as far as I can tell, the humans are the contributors to the Star Wars universe. If you're looking for alien races, look for criminal organizations and backworld planets that are run by criminal organizations. Humans in the Star Wars universe are the ones that basically run the show. So, in my view, while you shouldn't necessarily go as far as to put all non-humanoids, so from the perspective of the lore, it would be in the Empire, the Republic is a total free for all, but in the Empire it is the Sith. Well, it depends on which iteration. So it's Sith purebloods, humans, and oh god, what are the blue species? Someone real quick in the chat. What's the blue species? The Chiss. I didn't even need prompting. The Chiss. It's purebloods, Chiss, and humans. and CHISS is CHISS. They are the accepted races among the Empire, to where there's nothing really limiting your rise. And the CHISS are seen as basically honorary humans. They basically are like, the whole, honorary meme of Asians. The CHISS are honorary humans because they are a race that has always dedicated itself to the most effective rule of the Empire, and they are respected by the purebloods and basically the Sith Council. The Sith, the Dark Council and the Sith ultimately respect the CHISS as being humans based on their dedication to the system. And what is that? That's called meritocracy. That's called meritocracy, everyone. Again, if you say it's a human supremacist organization, technically, but then what are the CHISS? If merit can earn them a position, and a position of respect, where they are equal to that of humans and purebloods within the system. The only way in which I don't think they would be equal would be among the Sith, and with the Sith, it's ultimately might makes right. That's the only way you can make yourself accepted within the structure of the Sith, is by being powerful. But in terms of it being a human supremacist organization, I mean, we're all humans, so exactly what is your argument? Because if you say, well, discrimination is wrong, and it's like, well, are you the one that's going to be building ramps in the military? Should we have handicapped people in the military? Exactly how is someone in a wheelchair going to land on Normandy Beach? It's the problem is that there is no rational argument that discrimination in and of itself is immoral, because everyone discriminates. And so if discrimination can be moral, can be legitimate, can have even, whether it's just moral or practical reason for why it exists, then what is it within Star Wars that makes human priority something that is a problem within an organization and a state and a society that is overwhelmingly human? What exactly is the problem? Because ultimately, within the Empire, it's a, if you were to say it's a supremacist organization, it's a Sith supremacist organization. Like, it doesn't even matter if you're not a human Sith, you have supremacy, like all Force users have supremacy within the Empire. The only exception are Jedi. Jedi don't, because they're the enemy. You know what's irritating about aliens in Star Wars is that a lot of aliens will speak Hutta when they know Basic. Why? Why must aliens speak other languages when they know Basic? Why? That's a question for you. Let's see here. But yeah, when it comes to the New Order, calling them Nazis is fucking retarded. There's absolutely nothing. There's nothing about the New Order that shows it to be anything other than the dumbest caricature possible of, like, just an evil organization. It is not even displayed as fascist. Like, the Empire can be, in a limited capacity, portrayed as being fascist. And it's only through the mechanism that the Empire basically pursues criminals. in a way that is basically like an ethical obligation of the state. Is that spice is illegal, therefore we need to basically persecute smugglers and those trafficking it. When it's like, well, they're actually doing what the Republic can't do. They're pursuing criminals, and they're trying their best to enforce the laws. So even when you want to say that that is something that you can perceive as being fascist about the Empire, it is something that is a glaring failure of the Republic. They are unable, or unwilling or unable, I don't even know, you tell me. The Galactic Republic is unable or unwilling to pursue criminal organizations, regardless of which era we're talking about. There's some alien species in Star Wars that are unable to speak Basic, but that's not true for a whole bunch of them. No, it's not necessarily a lot of them are physically incapable of speaking Basic. So I don't agree with that. Baczynski says, I have a friend who went far left and his existence is to defend trans rights and cancel culture train. I told him that if you want to get acceptance, it needs to be gradual and respectful. He told me that respect is colonialism. Dude, are you living in Brazil still? Jesus Christ. Trans rights. I mean, like, when it comes to the trans issue in trans rights, all that is, trans rights, I think, is, what would it be, a mannerism or a colloquialism? Like, it's a phrase that means something else. Someone in the chat remind me what that is. Euphemism? Is that what it would be? But it's a political code word for black men are killing us. What can we do to stop it? Because if you look at some of those statistics based around trans people, that is the overwhelming issue that happens, is that black trans females are basically acting as prostitutes, hooking up with black men, and then the black men kill them. That's like a huge part of what people mean by when they say trans rights. That's what they mean. Yeah, I'm sorry. I guess there's not much you can do with your friend, but, you know, trans people are a fringe group of a fringe that is so resolute and small that I see it as unworthy of my time and consideration in large part. Because my main concern is the majority. That would be my... I mean, you don't have to spar with your friend if you don't want to, Baczynski, but I would say to you, if you were to talk to him, say, like, why isn't his concern the majority? Like, especially if this is Brazil, why isn't his concern the majority of Brazilians when the majority of Brazilians are probably not in a good state? Why is it random trans prostitutes that are getting murdered probably by black men? Why is that your consideration? If you could reform one of the two American political parties, which would it be, and what would its key tenets be? Well, if I were to be, if I were to look at it from the perspective of the long term, it would be the Democratic Party, because you need two sides of politics to, the left and the right, to be capable of ruling effectively. And I would say at this point, I would fear a Democratic, White House, Senate, House. Like, I couldn't even imagine the shit they would be passing at this point. Like, if you look at the Virginia example, I would be very afraid that we'd have, like, some sort of cockamamie federal, mandatory buyback shit. I mean, we're like a half step away from New Zealand politics. It's crazy. We would be, I'd be afraid they would Merkel this country. And I can't say that the Republicans are doing too much of getting in the way of that, because part of as far as I understand, part of the budget package that Trump signed off of, which was passed by the Republicans, part of it was an amnesty for, I think, was it Liberians? So even though we have two, keys to power in the United States under control from the right, or arguably the right, they still just passed amnesty. If that was taken out, you'll have to let me know, but as far as I'm aware, that was just passed and is now the law of the land. And no one fought it. No one combated it. It just passed right through. It sailed right through. And it's like, well, unfortunately, that's just the way things are. In the short term, I would say it would be the Republican Party. Because, unfortunately, with the Republican Party, there is many components to it that I think the healthiest component of the right is the nationalists and the nativists. Even though there are uglier sides to that, it's probably the best side of it currently. Because as far as I can tell, the nativists and the nationalists are really those that are prompting Trump to do the trade war. And despite the fucking nonsense that I've seen on Twitter, people replying to me, the nonsense of revolving around the trade war is going to be a long-term win for the United States. And there are very few short-term losses as a direct result of it. And as far as I can tell, they're the only side of the party that's actively pushing for that. That's something we need to do. We need to do it. But in any case, so that's my answer. Short term, more self-interested, it would be the Republican Party. Long term, it would be the Democratic Party. Because unfortunately with the Democratic Party, it's currently on the path of labor, where it effectively needs to crash out before it can reform. You need to get rid of the race politics. You need to get rid of the socialism. You just need to, in the Gibbs. You need to get over it. You need to get past the Gibbs. What's stopping you from popping your collar and finding a nice woman with which to settle down? Also, Merry Christmas and hello, wags. I guess these mean rags. I guess it's mostly effort on my part. My main focus right now is just getting a new job. It's pretty much what I'm trying to do currently. And once things slow down from that, I think that's going to be my effort for next year. Put a concerted effort in doing that. Lang says, wondering if you'd ever do a video about the godforsaken Somali refugees that destroyed Lewiston, Maine, something you and Nick Fuentes both talk about. I'm not really aware of Lewiston, Maine, but I'm aware of Minnesota, wherever it is in Minnesota that they've wrecked. Euro says, hey, Louis, have you ever heard of the people being discriminated for their natural cause? Because I haven't. For being discriminated... Oh, the natural hair. No, there's allegedly something. I have heard of black men, I think, having to cut their hair, or maybe black women too, having to cut their hair because they don't groom it. But that isn't, in fact, a discrimination. It's just grooming discrimination. It's hygiene discrimination. And I have seen that with whites as well. If you don't compose yourself, you will have people compose you for you, especially in an education environment, which is mainly where it's seen. Like, what would be basically be the comparison is, like a NEET who's fat, sweaty, gross, and has unkempt hair. That's the guy who's also getting groomed. And the only reason why people care is because black people most affected. When it's like, no, the NEET is also getting his hair cut as well because he's gross. It's the same deal. There are grooming standards that we must have, and I don't care whether it's in place of employment a school system or what have you, I think that those entities should be allowed to mandate what their dress code is, especially if they're a private enterprise. I don't give a damn whether it's your so-called religious paraphernalia or what have you. You should have the right as a private organization, whether it's admittance or if it's hiring, you should be allowed to determine what the dress code is and the grooming practices is of the people you're allowing in onto your property, and that of and that you're doing labor for, and also those that you are hiring. Obviously, if it's crazy, like, you know, Muslim levels of, like, you need to wear a burqa and all this shit, obviously you can push things too far. But I think that in a sane world in which we used to live to some degree, you know, you shaving your face, you cutting your hair, you know, you bathing typically daily. I mean, I don't think that these are things that are all that especially exceptional that most people can't do, you know? I think us in the West have decently high standards for hygiene, but if you look at the rest of the world, I'd rather have high standards than low standards. Better to have high standards than you know, to take turns shitting in the street. Bazinski says, bruh, this dude and all of my social circle has gone to the left and harp on continuously about fuck whites, oppression. I'm literally the only one that stayed on the right, ideologically feral people. Unfortunately, you know, that's just the way things are sometimes. Unfortunately, I'm not sure. You have to explain to me whether you live in Brazil still or not, because I don't know. Like, it makes no sense to me for you to have friends saying fuck white people in Brazil. It's like, yeah, none of you people are white. Where are the whites? I guess you're talking about living somewhere else, because I can't imagine in Brazil you're really complaining much to do with the whites. I mean, I could see you complaining about maybe the CIA. That could be like a conspiracy I could see from the left, but I don't really understand it from a Brazilian perspective where that would be coming from. And Peter says, I refuse to wash my genitals. Well, that's fine for you, Peter, but don't ask me to hire you. Let's see here. Okay. Just had to check something. I heard, speaking of Brazil, I heard, what's-his-face, Bolsonaro got injured the other day. He had a tumble, he went to the hospital, and now he's having some memory loss issues, so that's unfortunate to hear. It's never good to have, the leader of your nation have, like, a bad injury, especially when someone who got stabbed while he was campaigning. It's not really, I'm sure, good for him to be in that position. I'm going to get a new image up here for you. Bazinski says, yeah, I still live in Brazil, but the problem is that our middle class imports woke ideas wholesale from the United States without adapting them to local reality. I can't fucking believe that in a nation of overwhelming, like, non-white majority, like where the fuck? I can't understand that. Like, I can't understand for a second that, like, do they mean, like, white Latinos? Is that what they mean? Is that who they're fucking talking about? What the fuck? Like, what the fuck are they talking about? I legit don't understand. There's like the fucking the Brazilian left sees white people in the nation as basically like Jews. Like this utterly fringe minority that's working in the background to fuck up the fuck up Brazil. Like, what? Tim says, Louis, how the hell you been? I don't catch many streams anymore. Want to toss you some Christmas support from an atheist conservative watcher. Thank you, Tim. I didn't know you're an atheist. But thanks for the support. Now, I don't know if Sargon is going to be back anytime soon. It's unfortunate. Or anyone's around currently. I was going to see if anyone was going to come on, but unfortunately it seems like no one's around. I already talked about Otis Whisperer. I already talked about it earlier in the stream. You'll have to go back and listen to that. I don't really want to talk too much about that because I don't really see it is getting too much out of it. Also, Louis, 90% of Mexican nationals don't actually want intervention. The new president is quite nationalistic. In fact, he's good but not perfect. I heard he was a socialist. Because my group of friends are multicultural people who lived abroad for some of their lives because we are diplomatic kids, basically, and they see white as a monolith of an outside. Well, I mean, if you look at some of the fucking voting, the demographic numbers around voting in the United States, like whites are becoming white men are becoming a fucking monolith. White women are still pretty evenly split. But I can't really speak much to Mexican politics. I don't really know like what the guy plans on doing outside of like him handing over a fucking prisoner to the cartel because of their terrorism. I can't really say is much of a strong feat. I don't really think that's much of a thing, a positive feature of him. But yeah, unfortunately, going back to the politics of the United States, it seems that we have a problem, and it's the thing that I've mentioned many times, that the United States educational system is pumping out tens and tens of thousands of activists, and they're going across the world and spreading their ideology. I mean, it's going as far as to the point where apparently in Brazil, you have non-whites in a majority non-white nation, like heavy majority. Like, what is the... I'm going to look that up. I'm going to look up the demographics of fucking Brazil. Like, you probably have a bigger black fucking minority than you do a white minority. Like, how many... Okay, here we go. Demographics of fucking Brazil. Where is it? Okay, here we go. Brazilian, 100% of the population, age group, European. What? What? What are you talking about? European? What the fuck does that mean? So yes, I was correct, by the way. Africans are the fucking biggest minority. The second biggest minority are fucking Asians at 1%. Pardo, which is multiracial, are apparently 43%. And Native Americans, Native Indians, I should say Indians or Aboriginals are fucking 43% of the population. Unspecified are 0.0034% of the population. What the hell do they mean by European? What does that mean? Brazilians are about as European as fucking Japanese. What the hell does that mean? I mean, there are fair-skinned Brazilians, but there's also fair few amount of fucking Brazilians that are pretty dark-skinned, and they're not Africans. And being that 43% of the population is multiracial, it's like, well, multiracial with what? Okay, apparently, Brazil is a nation with one of the falsest passports in the world, falsified passports in the world, because you can literally be anything. It's weird how our gene pool is made up. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, with people that are South American, plenty enough of them are, fair-skinned, and that's fine. My thing is that doesn't make you European, just because you have fair skin, because so do the Japanese. Whatever, I don't want to talk about this shit. This is so fucking minute. It doesn't make any goddamn sense. Alright, I'm gonna get Sargon in here. Symposium chat. Okay, apparently fucking Sargon is going to explain Brazil to we simpletons. Okay, Sargon, help us out here. Explain Brazil to me.
Right, Brazil was colonized by Portugal.
Okay.
Sorry, I've just got to pause there. Yeah, so Brazil was colonized by Portugal, and Portugal transported the most slaves from Africa to the New World. So that's why Brazil's demographics look like they do.
Okay, so you're saying that it's a multiracial thing?
Well, it's an ex-slave colony, basically.
Well, what exactly is their ethnicities composed of?
Well, European, presumably mostly Portuguese, and then African and whatever the breakdown of natives were.
I don't know. They don't. Is it just like a Mediterranean thing? They don't really look very, European to me.
Well, a European doesn't necessarily mean white. And I mean that.
I know. We're going to return to the fucking Italian argument.
Yes, we are. And I take the Greek argument, man. I'm telling you. Like, I got JF Garapay to admit that they weren't white. It's like, gotcha.
Yeah.
But yes. So yeah, that's basically the story of Brazil.
Yeah, I'll turn. People are complaining about your volume, so I'll turn you up. So you should go,
right, okay.
Good now. I turn myself down as well. Yeah.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas to you. How are things for you?
Yeah, good. It's nice to not be in a room full of people who are all yelling and playing with loud noises.
Yeah, I with my family, we took care of everything yesterday, because that's like one of the weird aspects of my family is that we celebrate every holiday and birthday and all that like the day before.
Oh Christ! That's me.
I guess I skipped a super chat. Tim says, I see way more racism outside the United States. In Mexico against blacks, between Asians. Japanese hate C's, C's hate J's. Koreans hate both. Oh, Chinese. Indians against blacks, Africans against Arabs, and vice versa, etc., etc. Yeah, who knew? Who knew that a decent proportion of the world that's backwards as fuck all hate each other?
Man, it really makes you think, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, I mean, the issue is that, like, if you... There's some retard on Twitter that once in a while I get in a spat with, who thinks that, he or she wants to create some sort of, like, EU for Asians. And if you look at the numbers...
With who? That's what China is.
If you look at the numbers, like, the Chinese... If you compare, like, Chinese, Koreans, and Japanese, like... in heavy majorities, we're talking like 70%, if not more, for each. They actively dislike each other.
Well, yeah.
And like it's the thing is, like, I don't even understand the animosity, because we're talking about grudges that go back hundreds of years, and how long can that animosity really hang around? But
forever, mate.
Well, apparently it's forever, but it's like even in like first world, like advanced nations like South Korea and Japan, like they hate each other still. They actively hate each other. It's like,
yeah,
like the problem is that people talk about the United States and the West, like, oh, racism, blah blah blah. It's like none of you fucking retards have ever been anywhere outside of this country, have you? Like you've never talked to somebody from outside of this country. Like Let's go talk. I mean, like look at the Chinese and Chinese Muslims. Like they don't even have to be fucking non-Chinese to get genocided. Like, come on.
Dude, the Uyghurs aren't Chinese. They're Turkic.
Some of them actually are Chinese, though.
Are these the ones that have been bred out by the Chinese, though? Because they're currently putting Chinese men in Uyghur households to impregnate the women.
Yeah.
After stealing the husbands, and it's
well,
like,
those I
fucking
think
hell.
those are in like this part of like northeastern China. I want
Right.
to say, like northeast parts of China where they're trying to. There's some kind of like crazy construction work that's going on there, and that's part of this. But
It's
you know,
mental.
it's just with China, it's just the pursuit of power. It's them wanting to be a hegemonic power, and they're doing whatever it takes to get there.
Yeah. Did you watch Kraut's video on it?
I didn't.
It's really good video. It's an hour long, but it's very well told and very well structured and very informative. And he lays out the world history from the Chinese point of view, and it's actually
really?
very, very clear as soon as you start doing that why the Chinese are doing what they're doing. They basically feel that they were the center of the world, and now they're not, and that's an unusual thing for China, which is a very old place, and they think in very long terms. And I actually employ a guy from Hong Kong, and he's like, "Oh yeah, that's totally what the Chinese are like." You know, I corroborated a bunch of this stuff with him, and he's like, "Yeah, they do."
As far as you know,
Because they don't have democracy or anything. You know, they're not worried about like who's going to be the next leader. They're worried about what's going to happen in 5 generations' time. And apparently, they call the last 100 years the century of humiliation.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
They're interested in reclaiming China's rightful place in the world as being at the center of it. So it's like, right, okay, it's interesting.
Isn't it? Oh man, that's
Fucking
Asian
China.
politics. That's Asian politics for you.
Oh yeah, and they're brutal, man. They
yeah.
don't give a shit about human rights.
Well, they don't give it. Well, they don't give a shit about the planet. They don't give a shit about their own citizens. They don't give a shit about non-citizens. They don't give a shit about humanity. And meanwhile, we're like doing as much as we can to become like the biggest pacifist cucks in history. Like that is our active goal at the moment. Is to basically do everything in our power to just bend over and take it from everyone else. And
honestly, that was the only flaw in Kraut's video, is that he thought that Donald Trump was bad. And I'm like, dude, Donald Trump is obviously necessary in the face of what China's doing.
Was Hillary Clinton gonna stand up to China?
Well, yeah. Like, no one's gonna stand up to fucking China.
Like, you have a better chance of her filleting the premier than, and I mean
getting paid off for it,
than actively doing anything to oppose them, because no one outside of Trump and like the nationalists wanted to touch trade at all.
No.
He
the
still
neoliberal
takes flack.
Consensus is very much in their favor as far as they're concerned.
Fucking, I got shit the other day on Twitter because fucking what's his name? People in the chat. What was that retard that I was mentioning on Twitter? That fucking left-wing economist, Nobel laureate. What the fuck is his name again? Someone shout it out. That way I can recall it, because that's who I was talking.
Chomsky?
No, he's a linguist. This guy's an economist.
Right. He's usually the left-wing go-to guy on pacifist, pathetic politics, though.
Yeah, he basically he argued from the beginning of Trump's administration prior to him getting in. Krugman, thank you. It's Krugman.
Right, yeah.
Not Milton Friedman. Did Milton Friedman get a Nobel Prize?
Probably.
I don't even know. But in any case, Paul Krugman is who I'm talking about. He claimed from the beginning that Trump was going to, just him being elected was going to put us in like a huge recession. And it never happened. And he's been wrong 100% of the time. And I had some like libertarian autist fucking like jump down my throat saying like, oh, who are you to say that this guy's a fucking partisan hack moron? And it's like, he's the guy that continues to argue that because of Trump we're going to have a recession, when despite the fact that we're in a trade war, an active trade war with our largest partner, our economy is doing fine and theirs is taking a shit.
Yeah. Well, it's the same as Mark Carney with the Bank of England.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
like, Brexit's going to crush the UK economy. It's like, actually, we're growing faster than any other major economy in Europe. Sorry.
Yeah, and you're gonna
Didn't mean
grow.
to.
You're gonna grow more once you're out.
Oh, totally. Didn't mean to ruin your model or anything, but it just
Well,
was the
well,
opposite of
that's
reality.
not true. That's if you get rid of the ridiculous, ridiculous internal, eternal bureaucracy that regulations that exist currently. If you keep them on, you won't. But
Yeah.
if you come in and go fucking full Thatcher and just get rid of all of that, you are going to see like huge growth, at least for the next few years.
There is a general expectation that taxes will go down and regulations will be reduced.
Well, the thing is that I don't really see much in the way of a reason for it, because the problem is that the alternative, especially in the energy sector that exists, 100% of the regulation and 100% of the the government subsidies go towards green energy, which is not a self-sustaining industry. That without the regulations against fossil fuels and without subsidies directly from the government, the industry just doesn't exist for it, and it's because it's just not an effective system. It does not produce it does not produce energy effectively enough to warrant it being part of the market. It's effectively an artificial market that exists, and part of sustaining it is also pushing down on the fossil fuel industries, and that's not just oil, gas, natural gas. It is petrochemicals in general, so plastics and everything that's derived of it as well. Because if you can get energy cheaper, you can get plastics cheaper, and whatever you put plastics in, that also becomes cheaper. Yeah. And I don't really think that, unfortunately, with green energy, that it's anything more than just like the worst and most expensive form of virtue signaling.
Yes, I mean, I would like to see like a push away from the, the sort of like solar and wind and just to nuclear. I saw the other day, the total amount of nuclear waste for the United States, and it was like 4 silos or 6 silos or something like that. And it's no 100 square meters taking up to hold this, and it's like, okay, this is fine. This is not taking up an unbelievable amount of space or anything like that. This is totally sustainable.
Well, I can tell you that one of the issues is that a lot of these wind turbines in my area are being built, and they're still being built in my area, in rural parts of the state, and if you drive through them, it's just ubiquitous in terms of signs in people's yards. They don't want them.
No,
and it's like, well, the question is, like, I can respect a county. I think my county banned fracking, but it's like I can respect a county based on the legislature if they ban fracking, but unfortunately with the wind turbines, it's from the state, and so they're powerless to say no. And that I don't like, because it's like these wind turbines are not being built by entirely private investment. It's private companies fueled almost entirely by the state.
Yeah, they've got a lot of handouts.
So
let's talk about something more interesting than that.
Okay.
Man. Jesus, it's boring the hell out of me.
Okay.
So what else has been going on? Like,
I got into a Twitter fight with a few people, including Mundane Matt, for some reason.
Oh, really? What happened?
I basically said that the Empire in Star Wars, and I'm speaking to the Old Republic and New Republic, is basically
good guys.
It's a more effective system than the Galactic Republic.
The Empire.
Yeah, the Empire is a more effective system than the Republic.
Isn't this just Justin Trudeau's argument for China?
I would have to.
Because he basically said the same thing about China. It's like, I admire the fact that they can turn on a dime. It's like, yeah, it is more efficient generally to have a dictator, but it's not very good for liberty. So.
No, it's not. But there's no explanation from the side of the Republic that actually explains what their enumerated rights are. There's nothing that says. And through a single vote in the Senate, Palpatine went from Chancellor to Emperor and basically suspended and declared like galactic-wide, what it would be, not military rule, but martial law.
Yeah.
So
Based Palpatine.
exactly what was the prevention of that rise that was actually enumerated in the laws. Like there is
They can
there
just
is
vote
no
for it.
there is no galactic constitution.
That's interesting, isn't it? You'd have thought that there would have been some kind of reference to
There
one
wasn't.
being in existence. Yeah,
It's
no, you're right.
there is a constant, like, it's weird because you see this in a lot of like European, Canadian politics as well. It's like, we're liberal, we love freedom, we love freedom, we love freedom. But it's like there's nothing really enshrining that. It's just rhetoric, and it seems with the Galactic Republic, in my view, that's ultimately true, regardless of which iteration, is that there's nothing that really, like, there are laws, but even in the case of laws, there's another criticism I have against it. In the case of like the criminal organizations and syndicates that exist all over the universe, the galaxy, the Republic is powerless against them. They don't do anything against them. It's only the Empire that goes after the criminal syndicates. And
That's a
so
good point.
it's another argument in which I say that the Empire, even though it can be quasi-fascistic, we don't know whether it's enshrined in law, but there could be a component of the Empire that says that there is an ethical obligation for the state to be against, like, spice stealing and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But we don't know that. And in practice, what it is, in effect, is just the Empire acting as, like, they have investigators. They have part of the military, a component of it that investigates criminal organizations, and they just shoot to kill on scene. And they dismantle them on every planet they go to.
Honestly, it sounds like you're coming out as pro-China here, because you're making the Empire sound a lot like China.
Well, they both have eternal, ever-watching surveillance states. Both do.
Yeah.
The Galactic Republic has the SIS, and the Empire has the what is it? Imperial Intelligence. So they both have surveillance states. Because even among the Republic, it's SIS observe domestic and foreign. So it's not. It's basically like the NSA. So I got into an argument with a few people about that, and people coming out saying like, "Oh, the markets." People coming out being like, "Yeah, we need to legalize heroin in Star Wars." And it's like, yeah, I don't think that's a good idea. That seems to be one of the problems in Star Wars. I don't think I'm really on board with that.
Well, honestly, I mean, I don't think any of them should be what we would class as illegal. But I don't think they should be sold in shops or anything. But I mean, just sending people to jail for drug offenses seems wasteful to me.
Well, to me, the difference is between possession and then an amount where the presumption is that you're trafficking it or you have the intent to distribute it, to sell it. And I can say that I am not really interested in quote-unquote reforming those laws, because I think that regardless of what the law is, should you know it to be, your business is illegally trafficking narcotics, I don't really have much sympathy towards you going to jail for an extended period of time for distributing something that could be as little as weed, like, and could be as severe as, let's say, like, some hopped up alternative form of heroin.
Jeez, man, don't send the weed dealers to jail. Christ.
Yeah, I know, because of your own selfish reasons. But I
admit to nothing.
I can't really say that I don't really have much in the way of arguments in favor of retaining the status quo, as crazy as it is in the United States, at least on the federal basis. But I don't really see much in the way of opposing arguments from, say, somebody like Tucker Carlson, who's more comfortable with it being, like, weed specifically, being illegal, because through his way in which he thinks that it's basically, from a right-wing perspective, the opiate for the masses.
Oh, so is alcohol, like...
True.
Any habitually used drug like weed or alcohol is exactly that. I mean, that's what opium was, so it's not something that's going to get the plebs up and revolting, basically.
Yeah, I don't really I can't say that I agree with his argument, but I can understand his perspective. And being the way things are in the United States, I don't really think that legalization of marijuana, outside of, you know, the limited issues of sending certain people to prison for possession, I don't really know nowadays how much difference it would make, and I don't really know how much good would directly result from it.
So, did you take part in the hashtag Women Are Trash?
I saw it on Twitter. I wasn't really... It seemed like some foreign thing, so I didn't really know what to say about it.
Well, it probably was. Well, no, it definitely was a foreign thing to begin with. Then Western feminists started getting offended, and that's where it got good.
I didn't... You know, I saw that the day it happened, and I didn't really see too much in terms of reaction from Western feminists, even though I expected it.
It was only the basic bitch ones that reacted to it, to be fair.
Yeah,
it would have been nice if the big guns had come out and started shrieking. Like people should have tagged "Need Suck Easy" in it or something.
Sure. Well, the most of what I saw was basically just sort of like general red pill comments in response.
Oh yeah.
And those were amusing, but none of them were too like worthy of, you know, comments on that I saw.
None of them were worthy of Pastor Louis Le Vau, is what you're saying.
Well, I mean, the ones that I enjoy are like the occasional like red pills that come out from someone like Stefan Molyneux, and people just freak the fuck out over them.
One of my favorite ones was when he was like, "How many of Jeffrey Epstein's victims were Jewish?" And it's like, oh, Stefan, you spicy boy. You know? But what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say? You like, go on, make an assumption.
I've seen people tweeting all sorts of shit about Epstein that's crazy. That like he was a Mossad agent and stuff like that. And it's like
no, I think he actually did have some involvement with Mossad. I don't know though. I didn't look into it.
He had a connection through some guy who was a Mossad agent, like a very high-placed Mossad agent. Yeah. And so,
but the thing is with this, like, because of who Epstein was and who he knew. It's hard to know the depth of any of his relationships in this regard, so you know you can't really stand on anything directly.
And the issue is that some of the people who have been outed as part of his like sort of like quasi inner circle, who were around him a lot, was Alan Dershowitz. And he's still around. He hasn't been like canceled or anything.
He kept his underwear on, Louis.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, is that he...
Did you not hear his defense? That was his defense.
Yeah.
I got a massage, but I kept my underwear on. So, okay.
Yeah, so he did some freaky shit, but...
Matt Groening getting a foot rub from a 16-year-old.
He got more shit than Alan Dershowitz, and Alan Dershowitz is still, like I say, he's still around, so I would say that Alan Dershowitz, while he probably did some freaky, like gross, dirty old man sort of shit. I mean, maybe he could have gone as far that it was even worse. He could have done like some straight up rape or something for all we know.
Maybe.
But I would say that based on him still being around, whereas like say for example somebody like what's his face? Me Too guy. What's his name?
Weinstein.
He dove for the fucking rocks. He was gone the minute it started coming out, and. I think, I'm not trying to say like, oh, hashtag Me Too's, everyone's true, all the allegations are true. He's probably guilty.
Some of them are definitely true.
He's probably guilty. Because the guys that go for the fucking, like, they're fucking Saddam Hussein in the fucking bunker under the rocks the minute things go sideways, that's who you know is guilty.
Yeah.
But with Dershowitz, he went away for a little while, now he's back. And so with him, I think he probably did some dirty old man stuff, but I don't think there's probably a good chance he didn't rape anybody.
I think the main thing with Dershowitz is there's no actual allegations apart from getting one massage. Yeah. And the thing is he's a lawyer, so he's going to be quite litigious if it comes to anyone, making severe claims, isn't he? So, it's... Yeah. I get the thing that for a lot of people, it's like, well, I mean, we've got Epstein, he's definitely, one of these guys, so... But, I want Stefan Molyneux's question answered. That's all I'm saying. I just want an answer.
There's a video on my desktop I've yet to finish editing where he talked about basically the same thing that Jordan Peterson talked about in terms of like lipstick and high heels and that sort of thing.
Oh yeah.
And it's actually a little bit more controversial and like contested than both have talked about. But the thing is that it's a question that there is seemingly some answer to in certain regard. Like it calls into question like certain things, like why, like just ask the question when it comes to women in makeup. Why do women effectively paint their faces? Just why?
It's completely like evolutionary biologists. Jordan Peterson's just giving the stock response from an evolutionary biologist. Everyone knows that's the case.
Well, the issue is that the answer to everything that they have cited, such as lipstick, blush, and whatnot, is not as it's not as solid, and like it is contested by certain science that isn't totally like hack feminist illegitimate nonsense. But if you want to know the answer to the question, it forces you into the position of, if you believe Stefan Molyneux and Jordan Peterson to be wrong, you have to do the research. You have to do it, because the answer that Jordan Peterson and Stefan Molyneux are giving is not ascientific. It's not bullshit.
What's the alternative? What's the alternative theory?
Right. And that's the question. And if you have something else, you have to posit it. And unfortunately, in the matter, if you aren't willing to go through the effort of finding out what is the greatest truth that we can understand of the matter, then by default, Stefan and Peterson are right.
I think there's certainly an aspect to it, even if there are other aspects to makeup. There may be like competitive elements between women and stuff like this, but I think the idea that it's to make them look more attractive and for men to find women attractive, sexual arousal is definitely a useful tool in that toolbox.
Sexual arousal itself is the thing that's in question. That's the biggest thing I found that's scientific research that questions whether it's specific to, because specific to attraction versus arousal. You know what I mean? Like something.
But I imagine that arousal features in attraction.
Sure, but it's a question of.
Well, hang on. One thing that is found in many studies is that if women wear red, then they get hit on more by guys. And so, like, in the Matrix, the woman in the red dress.
Yes,
I'd
have to go back.
There is something about red, and I imagine it's to do with the color of genitalia or something.
I can't remember if that is actually true in the way that you're saying it, because I actually look into I read like 7-8 studies on it.
Oh, really?
And there's actually I think that might be the dispute. I think that might be where there's the most contradicting research done, is in the issue of red. And I have like a study right here. I think this might be it right here. That there's a question as to whether red specifically is the greatest issue. Like, I think makeup, high heels, and other things are the best. I think this was the study that questions whether red, and that it actually is stronger. There's like a stronger correlation with red as it relates to women and attraction than it does men. So
yeah.
Like,
I'm specifically speaking men to women.
Well, I'm speaking the opposite. I mean women in terms of attraction to red than men in terms of red. That there's a question whether.
I have no idea if women are attracted to the color red.
Well, that's one of the studies I have says that there is a correlation directly between women and their them looking at red clothing in comparison to men and looking at red clothing. So the issue of red, it is in some regard contested. And there is only, that's one of the things I found with this, there's only been so much research on this issue. There hasn't been enough, as far as I can tell, on the topic. And so there are studies that say positively towards everything: red, makeup, blush, etc., high heels. And then there contradicting research. Some of it's just crap, feminist nonsense that they can't actually prove. They can't actually prove through their data sets that this is in any way true. It's a lot of the studies are just based on rhetoric, and you can flush that shit out where it belongs because it's not scientific. But I got it. One of these days I need to finish that video, because it's like I went into it thinking that this was rock solid, I was already going lockstep with everything Jordan Peterson said and what Stefan Molyneux said. But it's actually, there is some of the research that's actually questionable because there's not been enough that's been done on it. And there's examples that kind of contradict it, but aren't malicious in,
Well, this is just what I was taught when I was doing A-level biology.
Sure.
Like when I was in second college. I don't know what your equivalent of it is, to be honest.
Yeah, I think red has more to do with just general psychology. I think it's perception-based.
I think red's an important color for humans.
Yes. So I think it has more to do with that than necessarily than what can be proven specific to men and women. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I'm not saying that women don't have an interest in red or anything.
Sure. Let's see here. The thing that I think, if I recall correctly, that was contradicted, that may be ascientific, is specific to the reason why men like red in blush and lips color is because it is apropos of, in reddened genitalia. That seems to be contradicted by research. Okay. It may just be red in general.
Yeah.
Hold on, I guess super chat. This is Merry Christmas, Sargon. Get Louis on D&D.
Louis too much of a normie to play in D&D.
I guess so. I really don't know much about D&D stats and that sort of thing outside.
Well, you don't have to. The DM has to know about all that. All you really do is make decisions. But I still feel that you're too much of a normie for it. So.
Okay. That's fine, I suppose. I just get excluded. You need to explain to me the principle where you're. That's a good question. I'll ask you. What is your beliefs on discrimination?
In what regards do you mean?
Just discrimination in general, whether it's right or wrong, moral or immoral.
It would be a baffling world if we couldn't discriminate against anything for reasons.
Okay.
Like, how do you discriminate against the woman you have sex with? If you don't if you're married, right. Then you've got to discriminate against every other woman.
Here's the question for you. A gay person walks into a cake shop and wants a cake. Is it right to discriminate against them?
Right. So no. It's protected characteristics you're thinking of.
No, well, I'm just saying the situation. A gay person walks into a cake shop, wants a cake for their gay wedding, and they say that. And the owner says no. What is your feelings about that?
So I've had to think about the bake the cake argument quite a lot. Mm-hmm. And I think that the principle of serving people who come into a shop with the products that are in the shop is perfectly valid. You don't want shops that have like no Negroes on outside, no Irish on the outside. Well, maybe no French, but like no Negro. You don't want those signs, right? And because that contributes, I would imagine, greatly to the pervasive nature of racism in a society, and that's not a good thing. So you don't want that. But conversely, I don't think you should be able to pressure or force someone into a contract against their will. I think that contracts have to be done consensually. So if they're saying, I want you to make me a cake that says, then I think they should have the right to refuse just on any grounds they want, because it's their labor. They don't have to sign a contract that they're going to make a cake for X amount of money, right? But if there's something laying on a shelf and someone wants to buy it, I can see a case for anti-discrimination laws in that regard.
Well, that's a pretty nuanced position on it. I would say that I understand your position, and that's mostly what my position is formerly. But I would say that at this point, I go a step further now.
Gone past the Louis. What are we doing about the gays?
It's pretty much, I think that when it comes to an entrepreneur being on their own property, they should have the right to refuse service to anyone for whatever reason. I understand like the possible outcomes that could occur in society, but I take issue, especially in the corporate environment. That's where I think it could become a lot bigger of a problem. But in terms of sole proprietorships and their business, I find my sympathies aligned towards them as a business owner being forced by the state to do something on their own property.
So, get back in the closet, you faggots. Is Pastor Louis'
Well,
opinion.
my position isn't so much that as it is go to another business.
What if you've gone to every business? Do you just not get the cake?
I guess so. If
Okay.
every cake in your area, or every cake shop rather in your area, is owned by, like, let's say a Christian who doesn't want to sell you a cake, unfortunately in that situation. Okay. But anyways, yeah. If that's my,
I'll be back in like 10-15 minutes.
that's fine. All right. Looks like he has dad responsibilities to get to. But yeah, my opinion on it is pretty much like if you have to go without a cake, you have to go without a cake, because ultimately I don't think that it's right for the state to be putting the obligation on the business owner to do work. That's pretty much my opinion on it. And I don't think that discrimination laws are helpful in any regard. They seem to be ever encroaching, ever growing, and expanding out to basically create a situation in which they can be used as levers or as clubs against people. And I don't think that's right. Yeah, exactly. Phantom Librarian in the chat says discrimination laws are immoral anyway. They're just a pure infringement on the right of association. Basically, that is, in essence, in principle, my problem, because right to not be discriminated against is not in the Constitution. It's not one of the founding principles of the nation. Freedom of association is right there. Let me find it for you. I'll get it on screen. Here we go. Cornell law right here. Get out of here. So, yeah. It's actually contested because of discrimination law, but the problem is that in relation to the U.S. Constitution, it is put in no uncertain terms in the Constitution. Like, you'd have to pass a constitutional amendment to revoke right to association to actually get this to be something that isn't a founding principle of the nation. But it is, in fact, one of the basics of American constitutional law. So, you can go look this up on your own. But it is something that is debatable. But the problem is that this is something we've had to deal with because of racism in the United States. Because we've always been a multiracial society, and we've had two standards in terms of legal representation, up until, you could argue, what would it be, the 13th Amendment? The 14th Amendment? And 1965, if you want to back anti-discrimination laws. I missed some super chats, I believe. Mute says, the last year has convinced me that we need to go back to having only landowners vote. Well, I guess I'm fine with that. I'm included in that. The Twitter moron you're remembering is Ray, whatever, irregular antagonist of academic agents. She openly hates the United States and says importing of Mexicans is just our due to taking California from them. Really? The guest says, I was in a gun store in Pennsylvania and saw a .50 caliber machine gun for $45,000. What can you Brits buy? I can't imagine they buy that. That has to be...
Sorry about that.
Yeah, here's a question for you from the guest, I assume. It says that he was in a gun store apparently the other day in Pennsylvania, and he saw a machine gun, a 50 caliber machine gun for sale, prior to like the 1980 whatever ban, and it's for sale for $45,000, which you, Sargon, can't afford. What can you, Brits, buy?
Afford that,
oh,
Jesus.
Bullshit, you asshole. You can't
No
afford
way.
that gun. Bullshit.
$45,000 on a shit.
You can afford that. What can you buy?
What? I can't buy a $45,000 machine gun.
Well, is it a cost issue, or you just can't buy it?
Well, both, I guess.
Well, you should. You should buy it there and see if you can get it transported legally back to the UK, just in case.
I doubt I could get it transported legally back. It's undoubtedly going to be illegal here.
I don't know. If you have the right permits, you could. I'd have to know more about gun law in the UK, but I imagine there is something where you can have older weapons.
I'd have to look it up, but I imagine they'd probably just find some reason to say no.
Well, that would probably be the case. It would probably not be the fair interpretation of the law. It probably would be the state just saying no. You can't have it because we say so.
Yeah, it's entirely possible. They are pretty fucking arbitrary when they want to be.
Yeah, and they are here as well.
So how's Virginia? Gun grabbers doing there?
It's not good because, I didn't know this up until I saw the sheriff on Fox News, but they're straight up sheriffs being like, "Yo, we're gonna deputize every person in the county." And
100,000 people.
If you come in here and you start acting against them, you're basically acting against. You have to understand, it's not just the thing of, oh, we're going to get around the gun laws. It's we're going to deputize every person, meaning they're acting as a sheriff's deputy.
Yeah.
So if you basically,
it's a way of creating a militia.
Yes, and it's a militia that basically has full legal authority to use force against you. And my thing is that's kind of radical, but it's
Oh, kinda.
Well, the thing is, I can't morally say that they're in the wrong when the state is basically just saying, fuck the Constitution, we're coming in. It's
they're not in the wrong.
Yeah, well, the sheriff's department, I can't really say. And it's happened in New York as well, where they've passed stupid gun laws, and the sheriff's department go, yeah, we're not enforcing this. And,
look, I'm not an American. There's a very clear process to be followed here. Get a 2/3 majority to repeal the Second Amendment. That's what you're gonna have to do, right?
Yeah. Well, it's either do it by state, which is fucking impossible, or you have to get 2/3 in the Senate and the House to get it passed. Yeah. And
it ain't gonna fucking happen. So you've got no legal leg to stand on to just grab people's guns.
All I know is that the day that happens would be the day that I would not want to.
1776 will commence again.
I would just say that I would be pulling out of the housing market in the Washington D.C. area, because I'm pretty sure it would be burned to the fucking ground.
Alex Jones leading the charge from his team.
Maybe unironically so.
Yeah, I know. I'm not joking. He's got 250 cals in the InfoWars offices.
And he has literal APCs now.
Yeah, he's a madman. It's amazing. Land of the free indeed,
So I can't, even if I pretended to have any sympathy whatsoever for the gun grabbers, and I don't, but I would say that for the sake of the nation, you should not be doing this.
Yeah, it's a very bad idea.
You should not be trying to go full New Zealand, we're just going to take your shit, and if you don't agree, we're going to fucking kill you.
Go Beto O'Rourke.
And because in the United States, it's one of the common sayings outside of the nation is that it's suicidal to invade the United States. It's that goes for the government as well, the United States government. You're not going to have any better chance. Because when push comes to shove, the military, the sheriff's offices, and even I'm sure a decent amount of the federal bureaucracy and the agencies, they're not composed by gun grabbing leftists.
I'd be amazed if the military would go along with an unconstitutional gun grab. You'd think that'd be the sort of thing the military themselves would object to.
Especially when it comes to the states invoking the National Guard. We're just gonna call on the National Guard to come in and take your shit. It's that might not work in the way you think it might. Let's mobilize the National Guard. It's
okay, King George, carry on.
It's all you need to happen is some story goes fucking super viral of some state agents kicking in a door and blowing away some guy's family, and the
Dude,
National
just
Guardsmen are already on the street corners, and they just turn around immediately. And they'll occupy the streets, but just not for you. So that's not a good idea. Because look at the one guy in Egypt. Remember that guy in Egypt who was like, "Yeah, we'll get the fucking military out," and then the military turned on him.
I know the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name offhand.
They've gone through a couple people by now, but
yeah, it's not Mubarak, is it?
I don't remember. But
I'd have to look it up. But yeah,
that was effectively what happened in Egypt, to my outside understanding. Is that let's call on the military, activate the military, and then the military just rolled in and then occupied everything that mattered, and it was like, "Yep, we're in charge now." It's like, you don't think that could happen in a state like Virginia? You think like these fucking like fat middle-aged moms that run the internal bureaucracy are going to stand up to soldiers? No, they're not.
Have you not watched a movie out of Hollywood, Louis? Women are powerful. I can't believe you'd say this.
If you look to like who makes up the permanent bureaucracy, it is fat boomers, the fat white boomers, or in the cities, fat black boomers, and it's like
Joker was right.
No one's like, well, effectively Bane is right. Like they're powerless. Like they think they have power, but the people with the guns are the ones that have power, and they're not on their side.
I agree. I just can't believe it's Bane that we're referring to as being completely correct.
Well, it's the scene in Bane where some simp.
You think you're in control?
Yeah, exactly. That simp thinks he's
in charge.
Oh, who's joined Scrump?
Scrump, yeah. But
Yeah.
you're really loud.
I sensed your Bane posting.
Scrump, why are you so loud?
He's okay on my end in terms of volume. I think it's because I turned him down.
It's my fault, don't worry. I've turned him down.
But we're talking about Virginia and basically how it's not going to work. Like the gun grabbers in the state think they're somehow going to have like this crazy system in which they're just going to start cracking down and going door to door and all this shit. And it's like, you guys are going to basically usher in like a huge statewide militia that's basically, and if they call in the National Guard, like I said, like all you need is one viral story that shows like the governor has gone like dictatorial and the National Guard is going to turn on heel against you in an instant because they're not composed of beta leftists.
The gun grabbers have gone pro Boogaloo, Scrump. How do you feel about it?
I was going to say this is Boogaloo bait. Yeah. This is full Boogaloo territory in here.
Yeah, it is. Because like I said earlier, before you jumped in, the sheriff's departments, like, I didn't understand it at first, but when they're talking about deputizing people, the sheriff's departments, and the guy went on Fox News, that's like fat guy went on Fox News as a sheriff, he basically said, like, I'm going to deputize every person in the county. And effectively, that doesn't make them like, oh, they can own their guns and they can get past the laws. No, they're basically now sheriff's deputies, meaning they're now state agents. And if you go go up against them and say, give me your gun, you're basically demanding a cop's pistol. And that's you basically trying to act against the state agent. So they now have full authority of the state and the county to act against you with force.
I can't fucking believe that they went the National Guard route. I can't believe they even said that.
No,
dude, that retarded thing they could have done.
In defense of the governor, I don't think he said that. I think it was another Democrat that suggested that. But
it was like the vice governor or whatever. It was basically his second in command who said that.
Somebody said that.
The fact that someone in a position of leadership in the state mentioned the National Guard when talking about confiscating people's guns is what universe do they live in?
Well, This is the Democrats have effectively taken over the state apparatus, haven't they?
Yes. At the moment, anyway.
You know how they? You know how they did that?
Importing Democrats from California.
Basically, no, not just California. Everywhere. It was demographic change. It was massive voter importation to the cities.
I've seen contradictory information to that. It seems as though it might be that and the Republican Party in the state falling on its face entirely.
Well, that too, but the demographics are still a large part of why this happened and how they ended up in the situation that they're in. And I usually a lot of people call Tim Pool like a fence sitter, but boy howdy has he figured out the whole demographics thing pretty quickly. Like, I see his videos now, and he's talking about Republicans in 10 years might not be able to win, and it's because of all these illegal immigrants who've been given
some
access
states,
now that they're voting Democrat.
in some states, that's no joke.
No, it's like the fact that Tim Pool sat there going, "It's like demographics, you retards." I'm like, oh, okay, Tim.
You know
what's down.
You want to hear something crazy? I looked this up on my own, on just looking it up myself. It's actually true for the district that Cenk is running in. It used to be a Republican district.
Oof.
Up until very recently. And
his conversation with Ann Coulter suddenly echoes back.
It's not been like the Mexican invasion. It's been white flight. That's been what the issue is in his district, as far as I can tell. Well, it's not really his district. He's running in it.
Yeah. How badly do you think he's going to do, Louis?
It's possible he could win, but right now he's in no way the front runner for the Democrats.
I love that the Democrats he spent so long in the past like licking the Democrats' balls, and now that they've all basically disavowed him.
Yeah, Bernie disavowed him. Oof, that must have hurt. Yeah. That must have hurt.
Well, in his defense, he shit on the party quite a few times in the past, and it's typically like the Feinsteins and the rest of like the leadership that he shit on, but it's only been up until recently. Only until recently, he's kind of turned, as far as I can tell, to where he has started sucking the dick of the party more. After Trump, that's been a big change for him, and he started to be more supportive of like more mainstream sort of politics, and it's also been because the politics of the party have shifted dramatically.
Oh yeah.
The thing is, let's follow this kind of like down the rabbit hole of where it's going.
Of Tim?
No, okay. There's two kind of different stories here. There's two kind of agitating factors within the potential boogaloo. There's these far left actors, people like Cenk, I guess people like Cortez, who have been primarying Democrats to try and move the party more towards the radical left. And we've seen the Democratic Party moving more and more towards radical versions of their former policies. You know, more radical gun bans, more radical in terms of open borders. But we've also seen a lot of the U.S. moving much more towards its traditional constitutional values, like you see with the rural Virginians. If there is going to be some form of boogaloo, do you think the Virginia situation is the most likely to kick it off?
It seems like the flashpoint at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, it depends ultimately what their response is going to be. I think what's going to happen in Virginia is that after all this shit they've done this time around, I think they're going to suffer a huge defeat in the upcoming elections because the right in Virginia is currently fucking really, really fucking active. And that's basically how you guarantee. The other thing is, too, is the Republican Party in the state basically needs to get their shit together.
The Republican Party in general needs to get its shit together. I'm incredibly disappointed how they haven't fallen in line behind Trump's pragmatism, his kind of soft nationalism, and basically the wiping away of the neocons. Because the neocons of the Republican Party are still the problem.
Yeah,
like, the Republicans are still
a lot of them have the neocons have defected to the Democratic Party. It's been crazy watching that.
Well, no, dude, it's the same as the Remainers here. It's the same as a bunch of the conservative Remainers defecting to the Liberal Democrats.
Yeah.
You know, it's the same principles that are in play here, and it's not to the benefit of the defectors either. They all got canned, absolutely canned. Because the sort of like neoliberal sort of like Tony Blair world order, that's ending, man. That's coming to an end, and we should be aware of that.
I will say with the state of the polls with Trump, it's very encouraging because we know how badly they oversample Democrats in those polls, and the fact that the needle isn't shifting at all. In fact, that they're not saying that Trump's being destroyed in the polls. They don't have that narrative right. Means that we are possibly headed for some sort of 2020 landslide.
Trump is not being destroyed anyway. He's not being destroyed in the economy. He's not being destroyed in international relations. He's not being destroyed in the polls. He's being destroyed on Twitter. Oh, bravo.
Yeah.
Bravo. That's good activism.
The longer the articles of impeachment don't reach the Senate, the longer this becomes a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I can tell you that Mitch McConnell in the Senate is going to he's going to make a show of if once he gets the paperwork finally on his end, they're going to make a big show of it, because the other thing is too, the longer they drag this shit out, the closer it gets to the actual election. And if it coincides with the election, if they basically have the mic for all the news coverage, and they could just make a big show of it, how bullshit this is going into the election, that helps Trump even more. So the delay is not a good idea.
No, none of this plays to their favor.
No.
I mean, I think they've painted themselves into a corner where they've talked themselves up, where Trump is Hitler 2.0, blah, blah, blah. That means that we have to do everything we can. We're the resistance. We're constantly fighting. We're the underdogs. And everyone just looks at them like they're bullies.
Can you imagine Hunter Biden having to take the stand in a Senate trial?
Oh my God, dude!
Before an election.
Oh, dude! And here's the thing: based on the numbers, the way it's looking right now, Joe Biden is the heavy favorite right now.
Yes, they're gonna shoo him in. They're gonna shoo him in like they did Hillary.
Yeah, he's gonna sniff the ring.
Sniff the ring.
I think that fucking what's his face? Styx has been he found like a few polls on it, and he illustrated them, and I looked them up myself, and I was like, holy shit! Like, even with the contender, the contending that you have with like Warren and Sanders and that, they're not going to be able to pull it out. And unless Joe Biden fucks up something royal, he is going to sleepwalk his way into that position. He is going to win the primary. And I would say that unless he can somehow take some brain medication to get himself right.
Yes, I've got brain problems.
Unless he can do that, Trump is going to smoke him in the debates.
God, I hope so.
And he's basically going to, like, I mean, everything with Biden. Like, he's going to get it in there. He's going to go, you look at this Obamacare. The courts just ruled it unconstitutional. You're passing unconstitutional laws. You're against the Constitution. And, like, he could just get him and, like, look at the drought strikes. Look at what he was doing. Like, he could just get him. Like, he'll go, all he has is, I was Obama's VP. Yeah, in Ukraine.
Yeah, Ukraine.
All he can say is that I was Obama's VP, and everything when it comes to Obama's legacy, it is just unraveling.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Biden is that everything they're doing to Trump and accusing Trump of
it is something Biden is guilty of. Like,
and he admitted it.
Even
there
the
is
sex
video
pest shit.
footage. Yeah, but there's video footage of him admitting that he held their feet to the fire and said, "You fire this guy or I don't give you the money." And then the next day he was fired or whatever. And it's like, and Biden's admitting this. And it's like, dude, that is what you're saying Trump did. And you are admitting it in public.
And with Biden.
Well,
yeah, go ahead.
The thing is, this kind of quote unquote quid pro quo is very, very standard in international relations.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is how you do business. This is how you do deals. This is how, up until recently, you're saying, you're right, Biden bragged about.
Yeah.
Everyone
why else would you give them money?
Exactly. The only issue that I have that is not, I think, standard practice, it might be standard practice, but I think is unacceptable, is this mob level tactic of, I give you this money, you give my son a no-show job. That is something legitimately the mob would do.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
And that's why Biden really doesn't want impeachment, I would say. Like, this is going to go badly for Biden.
Well,
and it's...
All I can say with Mitch McConnell, as far as I can tell, is fairly Machiavellian, and that's good. Yeah. Because all he needs to do is get in there and just make this about an investigation into Hunter Biden. Because there is a there. Because this dude got a no-show job and didn't show up at all in Ukraine the entire duration he was getting paid every month.
Like 3 years or something.
Yeah.
And he didn't show up. 50 grand
ridiculous.
a month for 3 years. He doesn't show up.
And what Trump is accused of is asking people to investigate that.
Yes.
Yeah. No, not even things. He didn't even actually like. He did.
No,
he was like,
the
I was wondering if
Ukraine
you could-
president offered.
Yeah, but he
Yeah.
was trying to set up a meeting or a meeting between like Zelensky and the Attorney General, and they were all going,
Yeah.
"Why don't you get the Attorney General to do it?" It's like that's literally the next line. You
Yeah.
liars, you know. Like, come
and
on.
with the Attorney General, that is specifically for the issue of. There's no other way to interpret. It's not like, oh, I'm gonna get you the Secretary of State. I'm gonna get you this person. That no. The Attorney General is for the sake of investigating it, for criminal prosecution.
Yeah. Oh, it's mad, isn't it?
It's
absolutely
not like
mad.
I'm gonna get you my henchman. No, it's for the sake of prosecution.
The problem is that so much has been done and so much has been twisted. And the big one, who was that guy who released like basically the personal details of a bunch of journalists who he didn't like in the House of Representatives?
I don't know.
It's the what's he called? In the report,
Biden is one sniff away from total dementia. There's no way he can win. I mean, maybe that's how he kept his fucking, senility at bay all these years, was sniffing girls' hair.
That's what he's doing. He's trying to like inhale their stem cells.
Schiff.
Yeah, Schiff. Yeah. What Schiff did in releasing, basically he subpoenaed the phone records of people who aren't accused of anything illegal.
Yeah. Yeah, Schiff is, that's why, what's his name? Naper? What's his name? The fat guy who's short, wears his pants super high.
Oh yeah, him.
Yeah, he's taken over for Schiff because Schiff has been caught with egg on his face too many times. Nader, that's what it is. Nadler?
I love how badly. Is it Nadir or something?
It's Nadler.
Nadler, right?
It's
I
not
love.
Nader. He was the guy who ran.
Have you seen him walking down the
No.
the House hallway, the congressional hallway, like an Oompa Loompa?
Get that
Have you
man.
seen that video? Oh
Get
my
that
god,
man.
dude!
Get that man a tuba. Get that man a tuba stat.
He looks like an Oompa Loompa, and I'm not even joking.
Boom, 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 boom.
Well, there's this. Let me see if I can find that. Let me find that photo. I'm gonna see if I can find that fucking photo.
Well, I just love how badly this is going for the Democrats. Like they don't seem to understand why they're losing.
Here, I think this is it. Let me see if I can find it. I think this one is it right here.
The problem is their grandstanding has ended now.
Yeah.
They're basically house trial. Their show trial has now ended.
Yeah.
And they are awaiting the counterpunch. What they were hoping was that this would ruin Trump. Like Trump's approval rating would be in the toilet by now, but it isn't.
Yeah. No. Well, the thing is, like, Mitch McConnell is, I think, playing this exactly right. He's just saying this is a partisan attack and everyone can see it. And it really looks like a partisan attack. Like 90% of the, only 3 Democrats were against it and stuff like this. It's like, fuck, man. The
And
Democratic
no Republicans
base.
were for it. That's the
Yeah,
thing.
no Republicans are for it. 3 Democrats are against it out of all of them. And, like, the public is split down the middle between the 2 groups of partisans, basically, the bases. And so it's like, look, this is not neutral or objective or fair. This is just the Democrats saying we really don't like Orange Man. And it's like, look, we know. We
You
fucking
think
know.
if the Republicans saw that he had blatantly done something wrong, the never Trumpers would pout.
Yeah, Ben
Yeah.
Shapiro would be all over it,
Yeah, but there's nothing. There's nothing that they have on him, and so ultimately, Well, here's an example of the photo. Let me get this up. Right here from Getty Images.
What's funny is though that Russia went nowhere, so now they're having to say it was the Ukraine, which is the opposite.
Yeah.
narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. Oh, this 2-year-long Russia investigation that turned up 0
Yeah.
evidence and it's like, okay, well that's gone now. It's like, no, that was a giant fuck up for you. Like you went on for years about how corrupt Trump was, and literally nothing on this.
Trump has now been impeached, and none of it mentions Russia.
Yeah, and honestly, it's like honestly, I'm genuinely amazed at how clean Trump's hands have actually been. Now I think about it, because he actually does strike me as the kind of guy who might do a few backroom deals and stuff like that.
He seems
So-
to be pumping money into his own hotels and that by like staying at them and things like that. But it's like,
You
like,
can't say you can't.
It's
what are you gonna
legal. It's technically legal, so
Yeah.
it might be
And that's
shady,
such a-
but
That's such a small amount of money too.
do? Yeah,
well, it's
yeah.
it's starting to grow in terms of the total. But my thing is that with Trump,
Comparatively though, that's a
with
really
him
small
being
thing.
such a wheeler and dealer, I'm not surprised by that in the slightest.
Yeah,
but-
exactly.
It's pretty clear to me that what happened in the previous administration, especially with Obama and funneling money from the federal government to activist organizations, that is so fucking cynical and corrupt.
And same
It's
with
ma-
Clinton with the Clinton Foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was obviously cynical.
Well, I mean, of course, Clinton's worse than Obama.
Well,
I mean,
yeah,
come
obviously.
on.
But the point is, these things are all over the place in the Democrats.
Yes.
They can't help but stumble over their own corruption when trying to nail Trump for
Yes.
corruption that doesn't even appear to be demonstrable. Like the Biden thing is just so amazing. I can't wait until like this little drama's over and then we're on the campaign trail properly and Trump can just leverage this.
The thing is, Trump is building up a massive war chest, and he knows
Oh yeah.
that this far out from an election, nothing matters.
Yeah.
Like Trump in 6 months' time, Trump could literally put all of the Biden stuff in a 1 minute advert or 30-second advert and just blast it across the entire US with the amount of money he's made.
yeah.
Get him just sniffing people's hair, him looking
But-
senile.
But to a voiceover of like the corruption, Hunter Biden was
Yeah.
on the thing. Hunter Biden admitted if it wasn't for his surname, he wouldn't be on the board of this. He didn't visit Ukraine once in 3 years. Joe Biden said that he was threatening to withhold thing and just play the clips.
Yeah.
Like they could just ruin Biden on corruption.
I think that's definitely. If I were doing opposition research, I would be putting maybe not 100%, but 99% into what else has he done.
Yeah.
What else has he done, especially involving his son? Because his son
And
is
then
like a
Biden
fucking
looking
crack
crazy.
addict, fuck up, adulterer.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely think you can nail Biden on that. And I think, like, the sniffing hair, I don't know how well that's going to play into, but that corruption shit, I guarantee you that's going to damage him.
Yeah. It's just
The
funny
thing is
for
as
the
well
memes.
that there's still a lot of like Me Too shit that could come out of the woodwork as well.
Oh,
they
dude.
tried it with Trump and it didn't work.
No, it didn't.
But with Biden,
Oh, yeah, I
Biden-
guarantee you there's something there. Because he definitely, like, I'm not going to go as far as calling him a pedo, but there's definitely something there with him. It's weird, and it's consistent. And that's how
I
you know
would
there's
not leave
something
my
there.
children alone with Biden. That's what I'm saying. Just wouldn't do it.
Yeah, well, the thing, like, if it were innocent, why would there be so many examples of, like, parents trying to step between their children and him? Which
Yeah,
happened
it's
all the time.
so obvious.
What? How would you know to do that, by the way? How would you know?
Oh. Dude, like there's so many hideous examples. Like here's like one where he's pinching some girl on the chest. Like just
I
some
don't
little
wanna
girl.
watch
It's like,
that.
what? Dude, isn't it, like he actually like pinches her like for some reason. It's like, what are you doing, Joe?
I know,
Like, this-
especially
like,
on
on-
camera. It's got like some sort of exhibitionist fetish.
It honestly looks like he's pinching her nipple through her shirt, and it's just like this looks like a 7 or 8 year old girl, and I'm like, dude, what the fuck? You
Yeah, I
know
know.
you are being recorded.
I
You know
know.
you're being recorded.
Yeah,
Like,
there's
if,
a-
and this is what he'll do in public.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, it seems to be mainly in public where we see it so often. That's what I mean. Like, it's weird.
yeah, it's disgusting, and it's like, Joe, like, come on.
And you know what's amazing is that he's basically, there's obviously people in the background telling him not to do it, and he keeps doing it. Every once in a while, he'll do it again. And it's like, they'll like pull him away and shit. It's like he just can't help himself, man.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
this kid just stood there, and I kind of want to touch it, like, so what am I gonna do? I'm Joe Biden.
He's had so many gaffes though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember the whole both barrels Biden affair where he basically said that all you need is like an old West style coach gun, guys. Just give him both barrels. It's not understanding anything. It's just like,
Yeah.
oh my god.
He's always been a gaff master. Like, he's always been someone that's been gaff laden. But the issue is that he's now operating on a different wavelength. He probably has dementia to some degree. And unfortunately with him, like, he's just way past his prime as a politician. And like I say, like I'm not just going on with Styx. It's based on the polling Styx has put forward. He is going to sleepwalk into the primary. He's going to win the primary based on what has been shown
He
now.
is.
And
Warren has collapsed.
yes. And Sanders can't garner enough momentum. He can't.
He'll never get the superdelegates.
Let's not move off of Biden here, right? Because on Google,
do you want me to put these fucking photos on screen?
Yeah, seriously, put them fucking up because they're so weird. Like, you go on Google and search for Joe Biden touching kids, you get hardly anything.
Yeah, and the first one is him rubbing her hair over and over again.
Yeah, go on DuckDuckGo, and there's loads of different kids that he's just acting so weird about, and not just
like
kids.
At least this one's a boy. That's a shakeup.
Biden looks like the black meme.
Look at this Chinese kid's face. Like, she's just looking at the camera. It's like a Jim Halpert style. Like, oh god.
Yeah, the head kissing shit too. Well, like when he the head holding thing is consistent, and that's bizarre.
Yeah.
You have Mitch McConnell in the background just staring out the one photo. I think that's Mitch McConnell.
Yeah.
It's like the black
Scrump,
meme,
get
but
out of
with
here. I'm not
Biden.
putting that on my screen.
Biden.
Yeah. Oh wow, there are more where he's grabbing women's tits and stuff like this. Hang on, here you go.
It's amazing that Google censors it though. Big.
Oh yeah.
Doesn't surprise me.
Oh, that's strange. That's strange. They're in the tank for the frickin' Democratic Party, which they've always been.
Yes.
Oh, the red one in the bottom's another bad one. The girl on the bottom, that's another bad one.
The one in the top left, he's actually grabbing her tits.
Yeah.
Like, holy shit, Joe. Like, dude.
So is the one right here. The woman here, the guy's wife, when he's speaking, right here, where he's sniffing her hair.
Yeah.
That's another really bad one.
God, it's so
She's like
weird.
physically cringing to what he's doing. Like super
uncomfortable. Why is Joe
uncomfortable.
Biden allowed out in public? Like, why is he on display?
Yeah.
Democrats, get your shit together.
I don't want to go as far as to say he's a pedo, but he's a dirty old man. He's definitely one of those old school guys that is just really weird around young women and just women in general.
Yeah, women in general. Like, there's one of him hugging Hillary Clinton, and she's clearly trying to get away.
Yes.
It's like, why are you hugging Hillary fucking Clinton? Like, doesn't she smell like sulfur? That's what Alex Jones tells me.
Smells like sulfur.
I hear he's an authority on such things.
Demon damn to hell. Oh.
Oh, here's the Hillary Clinton one. Oh, God. She looks so uncomfortable. She's clearly trying to pull away. Joe, let her go, man.
Yeah.
You know at the airport when you get frisked?
Yeah.
it looks like he's checking up for weapons.
Yeah, seriously.
Holy shit.
It's like, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm going to have to check you for weapons.
You know, with Hillary, even being the wife of Bill Clinton, she finds him uncomfortable.
Yeah, I imagine that Hillary's had to do a few things.
Well, to be fair, the only person who doesn't have to worry about Bill Clinton
Is Hillary?
is Hillary.
Mm.
Well, I don't know, that body count. It could go either way in terms of who's the next body.
And then there's the strange things Joe Biden's been saying, like what's the thing in the pool, touching the legs and stuff. It's like, Joe, what the and biting his wife's finger as she's giving. He's like, dude, what are you doing?
I think he's just trying to be cute, but the way that he's now perceived, it does not help him.
No, you're also, no one wants to see like boomer flirtations.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what he's doing in that situation. He's trying, like, I'm sure that he's teasing his wife. I'm sure that's something he likes to do. He seems like a bullshitter. And
back in the 60s, that was probably normal, okay?
Right, well,
back
right
when
now,
you were a young, handsome man in the 60s.
Exactly.
You could probably get away with that, Joe. Now...
Like, what you should be doing as a boomer is holding your wife's hand. That's cute. Yes. But, like, biting your finger, like, I understand what he's doing. I think it's just him being cute and teasing his wife.
Yeah.
But when everyone thinks he's totally out of his mind and there's, like, a legitimate reason to believe it, you shouldn't be doing that. And I think his handlers are telling him this. I think his handlers are telling him to stop doing this, and he does it anyways.
Joe, just don't touch the children. Didn't he say, "Oh, that one gave me permission" or something?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. No, dude, he said that twice. He did it more than once. He did that more than once. He said that fucking thing more than once.
Like, just don't touch them. It doesn't even matter if they're okay with it.
He was at some sort of union event, and
but Sargon, what if the child consents?
that was his argument.
Wow, I guess he's a resident of Pakistan now.
Fucking.
I mean, the child consented. It didn't violate the NAP, guys.
Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say he's gonna change his fucking Twitter profile to like what is it?
The NAP.
Not NAP. What is it?
No, but I love it. I love the idea that Joe Biden will appeal to the non-aggression principle.
No. I'm saying to the Twitter pedos, the thing they appeal to.
Oh, the map.
The map.
He's a minor attracted person.
No. But what's the no? What's it like called?
No map. Yeah.
No map.
No
That's
contact.
What it is.
Yeah.
Non-contact. Yeah, that's. Well, with Biden, he says it, but I don't know if it's true.
Yeah. Jesus.
It's like, well, I just want to fuck kids. I don't actually fuck kids.
Check
the difference
bigots.
there. No, virtue ped. That's what you're thinking of.
Jesus.
But this is the thing. I really hope Joe Biden does win it, even though I think he probably is actually the biggest threat to Trump. I think that the rest of the Democrats. I think that the rest of them are just totally unelectable, man.
I would say that if I'm surprised at Warren's unpopularity, not for the sake that I see her as, being viable for myself, but she's a senator. And she's from a blue state. She likely has been around long enough to garner enough power and control that she can wield it within the party, and the media kisses her ass in large part.
Yeah.
But she's been doing badly in the debates, and I think that's what's been weighing her down in large part. I
think the problem is that most people, in public, they say they support her, but everybody knows that she is basically a weak, shrill, petulant person.
Yeah.
Yeah, no one wants a shrew, as the leader.
The thing is, what happened with her, what happened with Warren, is that the DNA test stuff pre-killed her.
Yeah, I agree with that. I agree that the DNA shit is fucking Trump, dude. In the general would go crazy with that, and he'd be right to do so. She got her position in Harvard based on lying about her race.
Yeah, she did. There's concrete evidence of that, and he would just hammer that.
You know what? I don't agree. The Warren DNA stuff was in 2018, and at the end of 2018, she was on 6%, and then come
not in the primary, in the general.
Oh right, okay. All right, okay, yeah.
No, I'm saying that most people know that's in the background, and the thing is, as much as people like to beat the drum about Elizabeth Warren, deep down, I think they know she's a joke.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. She's not a very serious politician in terms of her. I don't know what it is with her. She's just. I've seen her in discussions with people, where she's talked about what she believes, why, and that sort of thing. Where she's not doing. It's more laid back. It's not her rhetoric, endless talking point stuff. She can carry on a conversation and can be somewhat charismatic when she wants to be, but in a debate setting or when she's pressured, dude, she just crumbles.
Well, she seems to have no backbone, and she seems kind of grandmotherly.
Yeah.
It's like no one actually wants their nan running the country.
Yeah.
They'd rather their racist old uncle do it, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that
people know that Warren in a head-to-head fight with Trump just doesn't have the gumption.
And the thing is, Trump could actually be quite magnanimous about it and be kind of nice to her, and that would make her look worse if he was. If he was, it would make him look kindly, like he had a kindly side. It would make her look weak and pathetic.
In a debate, he could patronize her, and it would make her look incredibly weak.
Yeah, exactly.
With Trump, with Hillary in the debates, she wasn't able to manage it every time, but she was able to hold her own to a degree in the debates against him. But he's so fucking aggressive that that's basically what you have to match and counter, in fact,
Yeah.
if you want to win against him. And those debates, I think this time around they're going to just pointlessly try to limit them like they did last time again, because that's what they know. They understand that Trump, give him the
Trump
state.
loves it. He'll play to the crowd.
That's where he is the strongest.
Yeah. Look at his campaign rallies. What does he do? He just sits there for an hour and just says whatever's on his fucking mind, man.
Yeah.
And guess what? People queue out of the
Yeah.
door in stadiums.
Yeah.
To see
Yeah.
him.
Trump's an entertainer.
Yes.
He's a fucking entertainer. He loves it.
If you put him on primetime television, he wins. Especially
Yes.
if he front loads it with, if like all the media is like, oh, Trump's going to come in and he's going to come in with both barrels. That only helps him more. It only gets more eyeballs. It only, it'll help the ratings for the cable companies, but it will actively put him into the White House again.
They're hyping up like Trump's a madman. You know, Trump's this person who will say anything that comes into his mouth.
Yes, and that helped him. That helped him in the debates.
Yeah, the public's just like, go on.
And especially now where it's like they can come in, he's going to destroy America, recession, blah blah blah. He can go, actually, I've been running this country for 4 years and it's been great. It's been great. Look at the economy. Look at the stock market. Look at the jobs.
Prove him wrong.
And it's just like, you talk about Democrats helping blacks. I've done more to help blacks than any of you ever have in your lifetimes. You're there working with
look at
segregation.
Baltimore.
You're there working with segregationists, and I'm there putting blacks in jobs. Like he would fucking crush Biden. He would crush Biden.
That's the Democrats' big problem, though. It's the economy. The economy.
Oh
is doing so fucking well. And part of that has actually been the trade war with China. That's done.
No, it's
gangbusters.
been despite it. It's been despite the trade war. It's been
okay. There's been some stuff that has suffered because of the trade war. You know what's actually taken off because of the trade war? The steel industry. U.S. steel is back in a big way, and that is purely because of Trump.
Go God Emperor.
I can't really speak to the specifics of any kind of commodity that's done better as a direct result, but I do know that in general the economy is doing better, and is doing better not in a form as it was under Obama, where it's recovering, but is just doing better in general. And I think that
the thing is, it's all the factors are up.
Yes,
growth is up, jobs are up, and wages is up. It's got the
Yes.
trifecta.
Yes.
And if you're right, if you're right about
Yeah.
the steel industry as well, surely that's the Rust Belt where Trump will deepen his hold as well.
It was like an overnight thing when Trump basically slapped China around and told them to stop the dump steel stuff. That made the price of U.S. steel within the U.S. viable overnight.
And there's still, and this is credit to Obama for not getting in the way of entirely all of it, we're currently going through a boom of gas and oil. And so that's been one of the things floating the good economy. So, yeah, the U.S. economy is doing pretty well at the moment, and I think that Trump deserves credit in that regard, and so do congressional Republicans for those that did participate in it. But I don't really see, and with Republicans, they always do better when the economy is doing well, and they always suffer when the economy is doing bad. You can go back and look at the last 100 years, and that it's true. Go back 100 years. All the way to now, Republicans that have a bad economy suffer. Republicans that have a good economy benefit.
I love how much water Tim Pool is carrying for Trump these days as well. And it's not, I don't know if he actually wants to. I think he just wants the Democrats to lose.
Yes,
So
I think with Tim, that's the majority of it. I've seen people shitting on Tim lately from the left, and it's like, oh, he's just a cynic, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, nah, I just think with Tim, it's just looking at what's the alternative, and
that's
really
exactly
seeing it.
Well, the thing is, he's looked at the facts, and the facts point to Trump winning.
Yeah, and the facts also point to Trump not really having done much wrong. You know? I mean, something could come out tomorrow that could change that narrative completely. But as it stands at the moment, what's he done? You know, it's really petty that the Democrats are being like this. And they seem desperate, and they seem like they're flailing. and Trump looks like he's once again ascendant. And like Tim's just put out a video called "Trump laughing as hypocrite Democrats bicker over wine caves and he rakes in millions," with a picture of Trump just pointing and smiling at the camera. It's like come on, Tim, you know you're enjoying this. Get the MAGA beanie, mate. Come on.
Yeah.
You know, I'm gonna message him actually. Tim, get a MAGA.
Yeah,
beanie.
next time he's in New York City, bring him to Trump Tower.
Yeah.
They got the official campaign merch right there in Trump Tower. Have him buy one.
I haven't wished him Merry Christmas actually, so I'll do that now.
That was one of the first things I did when you had that thing a couple years ago in New York City. I went to Trump Tower and bought a MAGA hat and Trump keychain.
Yeah, I've got a MAGA hat sat on my bookshelf.
Yeah,
Trump Tower.
myself as well. It's right behind me.
Yeah.
But I can say that, you know, all credit to Trump. I've been a Democrat my entire adult life up until he became president, and I didn't even vote for him. I'm sitting there election day like, oh my God, I can't believe he won, and then here I am today, and I'm now a registered Republican. So it's like, how, like, I can't really say that Trump hasn't done. I mean, he's gotten rid of all the neocons and all the people that have, well, not all of them, but a decent portion of them. Like, he's pushing them out of the fucking party, and it's like, how is that a bad thing? Like,
so Louis, now that you're the king of the Republican Party,
okay,
you've taken it over. Where do you stand on the Groyper Ben Shapiro Turning Point USA war?
The Groyper with Groypers, I can say that I can't say that I agree with them entirely in terms of what they believe, but I believe the Groyper Civil War to be incredibly healthy. Because it forces some of these people to actually address what they believe, why, and what they've said in the past.
Are you saying that Israel is not our greatest ally?
Well, the issue is that Israel might be our greatest ally, but the question is, Ben Shapiro, if you once believed that it should be an ethno-state, what changed your mind for why you think now...
Did he believe that Israel should be an ethno-state?
He wrote an entire scorching, like... black-pilled op-ed of
Really?
Israel being a fucking ethno-state.
Oh.
And
I wasn't aware.
I couldn't believe what I was reading when I read it. But he
Ben
has since...
Shapiro usurps Nick Fuentes.
He has since disavowed it. Numerous times, in fact, to his credit.
In fact, it feels like Ben Shapiro arguing with Ben Shapiro. It's great.
But it's like... What is the thing that made you change your mind? And specifically addressing it, like, why are the Groypers and the more alt-right part of the Groypers, why are they wrong for believing what they believe in regards to the United States? Why? And
I've been having
an argument. Sorry, it's an argument they can't win.
Yeah.
If Israel should be an ethno-state, the United States should be able to be an ethno-state.
Exactly.
You know, it's very much ethno-state for me and not for thee.
Exactly.
The interesting thing that Charlie Kirk actually changed his position. I read the op-ed he wrote on thing, and he actually sounded quite humble, and he seems to have like reconsidered his own position.
The op-ed he wrote was very good. It was very conciliatory towards the Groypers. But I don't know how much of it is actually real, how much he's going to continue to advocate. I would say that with the Groypers, it's healthy. You're not going to get everything you want.
No. Good job.
But you could get some things you do want. You could push the Republicans. And what you should do, if I was in the Groypers' position, is push Charlie and the other bigwig people that show up to his events, because Charlie Kirk, I don't think necessarily is a bad guy. I think that ultimately he might have like a more internationalist sort of like, you know, neoliberal kind of leaning, more libertarian leaning, and that's fine. But you can get victories that I think would be definitely beneficial to the United States. That, like for example, him fully endorsing and advocating for English being the official language of the United States. That I think
not even controversial. Like most voters will agree with.
I think that if you can get the Republican Party to actually pull, it requires them getting back the House, and I think that's on the horizon. By the way, I can't say for certain, but I think that's going to happen.
God, I hope the Democrats have screwed themselves.
Yeah, what you do is though you make the Democrats be in opposition to that too.
Yes,
it makes them look silly.
It makes them look even worse.
Yeah, no, Spanish is just as American as anything else.
Exactly.
Oh, good job, good job.
The thing is with Nick Fuentes, though, I remember Nick Fuentes from like back in the day. He was a mutual follower of mine for a long time, and there are streams out there of Nick Fuentes playing Minecraft, surrounded by what he describes as his cat boys.
Yeah, he had something like a cat boy harem at some
What
point.
Yes.
is a cat boy exactly?
It's
Oh,
cross-dressing.
Simon, you just have no taste.
It's a
No, I'm not a man of culture.
It's a twink who's cross-dressing.
As a cat. It's basically a cat girl trap.
No, I think
Fuentes is.
That's so
No,
great.
I know from him retweeting certain things that I posted, Fuentes is deeply a man of culture. He may
Very
even be a more
interesting.
cultured man than I am.
Ooh, he's hiding his cultural power level, is what you're saying.
With-
He is.
with
we,
Fuentes-
we need to ask Fuentes the trap question. Ask
Yeah.
him about the Catboy harem.
I'm gonna call
we need
in.
to grope at him.
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
do
Catboy.
it.
Well,
dude, call in.
the
call
thing
in.
is, to Nick, if I were in Nick's position, I would be very upfront about that silly question, so it does not spiral into something that makes him look like he's full of shit. Because I think that's a very small thing. It's just him probably
Of course it
engaging
is.
in banter on Discord and shit. But if he avoids it, it's going to make him look bad. And
Yeah.
I would
Come on.
say, yeah.
Come on, Nick. Tell me, did you taste the Bucci? We need to know.
It's just inquiring
Oh.
minds, Nick. We've got every. I thought you were
Yeah.
up for debate, Nick.
Did
To be
you
fair, though,
smash
right?
into that like the USS Liberty?
Yeah, yeah.
I just think that in
We're not
particular with
asking
it,
for baking advice, Nick. Come on, we just want to know about the cat boys.
I think that it's like example of when he had the quick interaction with Shapiro at the TP event.
Yeah.
Somebody asked him afterwards, and Andy No was there. A guy asked him like, "You're flamboyant, so like, how are you anti-gay?" And I thought that is the kind of thing that is entirely fucking disingenuous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
is
It's a dumb thing.
if you want to make Nick look bad, that's not how to do it. It's not saying, "Oh, you're a fucking fag, bro. How are you anti-gay?" It's like, dude, come on, give me a break
if
with
you-
that.
If they want to actually defeat Nick Fuentes, sit Michael Knowles in front of him. That's what they want to do.
Maybe
To
so.
debate with him.
Maybe so. Well, it would have to be.
Did you see him handle the groiper at one of his events at a university?
I've
like,
seen
there's
him and Charlie Kirk both effectively counter, and Dan Crenshaw at one point counter a groiper.
But Michael Knowles, I think did it easily the best because Michael Knowles is not a libertarian. Like he's a Catholic conservative,
Mhm.
but he's not like he's not one of the sort of frothing at the mouth Bible thumpers. They're just his values, and he translates them through the sort of constitutionalist American framework. And so he's got that kind of populist mindset, but he's also incredibly well educated and unbelievably articulate. And the way he was taking this groiper kid apart, you could see like the groiper looked like a feminist with fish mouth,
Yeah.
like so upset. And it was like, oh man, he just ruined you, and needless to say, the groipers didn't say much about that. So,
Yeah. They basically, as Nick himself said, like they basically need to get their ducks in a row, and if you aren't capable in asking a good question, don't ask it, which is what he said to begin with, and I think that's a good strategy.
I like what they're doing though, because what it does is it really just sharpens the right arguments.
Totally.
Yes.
I agree with you, Nick. Louis, I think the groipers have been a healthy thing for the Republicans
Yeah.
to purge the neoliberal ideology, because it does need to go completely, right? And the people don't seem to understand Nick's real strength. Nick's real strength is essentially being a troll, right?
Yeah.
Because he's got this kind of joyous expression when he's doing all of this. It's great fun. It's energizing. He's a funny guy. People want to watch him because he's funny and he's kicking your asses, And so Ben, like, stomping off with his kids, looking all serious. It's like, dude, take Michael Knowles or Andrew Clavin, right? They would have both turned and confronted him and just, friendly, because Nick's not a threatening guy.
Diffused it.
Yeah, they would have just been like, "Hi, Nick, how's it going?" And they would have just talked him through it. And Michael Knowles has got that same kind of impish, like trollish grin about him as well. So I love watching his university talks. He's got this real joy on his face where he's just laying down all of this stuff, and you can tell there are leftists in the audience seething about.
I would love to get Nick Fuentes on a stream.
Oh, it'd be great. But anyway, the groypers are a good thing, but they're effectively like the Robin Hood style reformers. You know, they're out in the forest.
I would
taking
say
pot shots.
a portion of them are, because I think they're a mixed
Oh,
bag.
Sure, but Nick himself then, right? Like he's not the guy you want in charge, but he does serve a functional and necessary role. And so the quicker the Conservatives essentially reincorporate the like Tucker Carlson style patriotism rather than neoliberal fucking internationalism, the better it will be for them.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately the linchpin that has to go with the right. Yeah. I see this. I've seen it with Charlie Kirk as well. Somebody just recently sent me a video from last year from a TP event with Tucker. And Tucker is on the stage basically making the argument in favor of, like, the United States is changing too much. We're having too many problems. We need to focus on the family. And fucking Charlie is up there talking about, well, what about the free market? And
the GDP.
It's stupid.
And
I remember that one because wasn't Tucker Carlson asked, both Ben Shapiro and I think it was Ben Shapiro, sorry, who was talking to, and Ben Shapiro was just incensed that Tucker Carlson might sacrifice some parts of the market to benefit the American family.
I think that was on his show, wasn't it? Was that on Ben's show when he was debating him? Yeah.
Where they sat down in front of the orange lights.
Like I say,
it made Ben Shapiro look so fucking stupid.
Yes.
Tucker's really been smashing it as well, to be honest.
Yes.
Like, I've watched a few of his speeches and stuff where he just gets he's quite self-effacing actually.
Yeah.
And he just says a bunch of stuff that he believes. And none of it's really unreasonable,
No.
There's nothing about it that you're like, oh God, how dare you, Tucker?
He's raising points that I think everyone agrees needs to be addressed if they're in any way paying attention. Yeah. And it seems to me that a lot of these people, like the Shapiro-ites, and that includes a lot of people on the right, they're just like the fucking second they are questioned as to anything, they just go, well, we just need more people in the fucking churches, as if that's anything other than an empty deflection.
Yeah, and it's not going to happen. So,
it's just amazing.
No, it's not going to happen.
Like, for example, like the Catholics out there, the Catholic Church. Like, I talked to my mom recently about, like, in my area, there's like this ongoing slow motion train wreck of the bankruptcy of all the Catholic churches in my area, because they're all being sued into non-existence by, victims of sexual assault by priests. And the churches, the churches and the cathedrals are empty, even on Christmas Eve and the Christmas masses when they should be the most full. They're fucking empty, and it's because Catholics are embarrassed of their own church, of their own religion. It's just like so I say to Ben Shapiro and the others, it's like, this is one of the problems we're having in the United States, whether it's Catholicism or just Christianity, is that people are walking away from them. And it isn't because religion bad, and, Christopher Hitchens is resurrected and we're going to win the argument, tip from our atheist fedora. It's because, like, at least with Catholicism, it's like fallen on its face, and it's nothing but an international embarrassment.
The Pope is a fucking rabid progressive.
Yes.
I hate it.
Woke.Pope is the worst thing. Woke.Pope, whilst he damage controls the pedophilia shit.
I mean, a Catholic could so easily get involved and basically say that the Catholic Church is going to represent, like, we're going to be opposed to the forces in society that are tearing the family apart, and like they could make every kind of argument to say that Catholicism, based on its historical legacy, this isn't some tent preacher. We are the legacy religion of Christianity, and we are going to right society. You can't have that happen with a progressive pope while you're in the middle of an international fucking pedo scandal. Forever. For decades and decades and decades, you've been on an ongoing pedo scandal.
Yeah.
Their problem is a lack of moral credibility.
Yes.
The Catholic Church has always sold themselves on being the moral arbiters. They are the most moral. Yeah, and they have the greatest claims because they're the most pious, they're the oldest, they see themselves as a direct link to Christ. But you can't make a moral argument when your ranks are full of convicted pedophiles. You
basically, what the Catholic Church
take
needs,
note, SJWs.
I'm gonna say
the church needs, in effect, and I hate to say this, but I will say it. You need to bring back a Catholic priest or cardinal, whatever the rank is, who is basically from another century, who comes into power and just kills all the pedophile priests, displays their bodies, and says, I've excommunicated them from heaven, and I've excommunicated them from the church. They're all guilty. They've all been convicted to the church. Our Templars, or whatever the equivalent would be within the church, have killed them, executed them with justice in the eyes of the faith, in the eyes of God, and anyone that enables them will be put to the sword equally.
Pastor Louis, bring back the Templars. Love it.
Well, then you've reignited the moral conviction of the church.
Oh, I agree. I mean, like, maybe not execute, but like be ruthless and say, look, we are the only people left who are concerned about the safety and sanctity of children.
Yes.
The people among us who have done anything to violate that are basically dead to us. The next person who gets caught, holy shit, you're just going to disappear. This is how we're going to go forward now.
I don't know. Disappearing, I think
it's a hyperbolic thing I'm saying.
Even in hyperbolic, I am saying even in the realm of hyperbolic, I think that, you need heads on a spike. You need to show the public, not within the church itself. I think that reform is just going to basically
heads on spikes.
Heads on spikes. I'm
signing up to your manifesto. I like it. You've won me over.
I'm just saying that if the church actually wants to reform itself, it can't.
Louis, we need heads on spikes, Levi.
Well, I'm just saying that if I were the
What's
church,
your platform, Louis? I'm going to murder the pedophiles. It's like,
here's the thing with the Vatican. The Vatican is itself its own country. So is it technically illegal if you bring the pedophile priests to the Vatican to then put their head on spikes?
Could the Pope not at least change the laws of the Vatican City to be able to do that?
He probably could do, yes. Death penalty for pedophiles.
Man, that is a powerful stage for the Pope to stand on, especially after the scandals.
Pretty much to point out what somebody said in the chat, the Catholic Church does in fact need an inquisition, and I do. I think that in itself, like an investigative force that oversees the organization, combs through it, finds criminals among their ranks, and basically does away with them. I actually agree with that. I do think the church needs it. Okay,
well, the Inquisition didn't do that, just so you know.
I know. Well, I mean, I'm not saying it needs an Inquisition. I'm not saying it needs the Inquisition. I think it needs an inquisitorial force.
I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't need self-police much better. It definitely does. But they could be a lot more firm than they are, and it's kind of
basically they need a KGB. Does that make it a little bit better?
Yeah,
well, not by much. But point taken. Point taken.
They need like the equivalent of like the military police.
Yes. Well, they do. They already have it. They already have
just
it.
The Stasi. That's what you're looking for, isn't it?
They already have a military police within Catholicism, within the Vatican. That already exists.
Oh no, you're talking about the Swiss Guard, aren't you?
Yeah, effectively.
Yeah, they're not military police.
They're ceremonical.
Yeah.
Yes and no. They still bodyguard.
They're bodyguards. They're not what you're they're not what you're looking for. You're looking for like the Stasi or something.
Maybe not less so the Stasi. The Stasi was less. Well, maybe the Stasi, because then the members of the church, if they have any information, can rat that out to the organization, and then the priest can just disappear in the night.
I mean, the thing is as well, like no one could ever argue against the Pope doing this. The Pope's like, look, what I want is for you to rat out on any paedophile priests in any of our dioceses.
Yeah.
So just here's an email address or whatever. You just rat out that pedo priest, and we're gonna come and we're gonna get him. I mean, who's gonna stand up and go, no, I don't think you should rat out pedo priests. Like who's standing up?
Here's a compromise. The church invents the force to look for them, and let's say they invent the mechanism to rat them out, report on them. They summon the priests to the Vatican, which they have the right to do. I understand this about the church. They have the right to summon them, and you must show up. Mm-hmm. They publicly lash them, Then they turn them over to the prosecution.
Bold.
There's
This
a
is
compromise
vision. That's gonna
vision.
turn around the Catholic Church.
Yes.
No, I really think so.
Yeah.
It
would.
done.
It would be effective.
Anyway, circling back around to the discussion at hand, the big problem with the American right, like Shapiro, is that they argue from a religious standpoint. They don't argue from an actual value standpoint.
Yes.
Values don't have to come from religion, and I know why this shouldn't, because religion in the US is becoming less and less popular.
We have just
Especially,
been
like you said,
encouraging the
Protestant.
Catholic Church to go on crusading, the 10th Crusade, though. So
I'm just a reformer.
heads
And
on pikes. I'm just a reformer.
I am a former Catholic, so I think that I have some rights.
Oh, that explains a lot.
I'm just saying the church can always win me back should they make the right reforms.
Oh, Louis, the chat kept asking, though, can cat boys consent?
Well, they are men, so I guess technically. It depends on
What does that mean?
it depends what
Louis, you can't rape men or women can't consent, Levi. What?
it depends. Well, do you mean boy or underage, or do you mean like adult?
Oh, does it depend on the
Well,
cat boy, does it, Louis?
You always say that cat girls can't consent.
Yes,
but
cat girls can't consent because they're basically mentally deficient.
Well, how many cat girls have you met?
Well, I don't go to conventions, so none.
Well, exactly. You don't know they're all mentally deficient.
I gotta say, I've met a few, and to be fair, your assessment is about 50-50.
There you go. I always say that when it comes to cat girls, just give it to a court. Let them determine whether it's mental sufficiency, just like it is with retards.
So, hang on. Why are cat girls retarded? I don't
Because
know
that's
anything
how
about-
they're portrayed in the media.
Right. Okay.
They're
don't know
basically
anything about it.
portrayed as mentally slow. Like there's nothing like they're portrayed as animalistic. They're not fully conscious.
Right. Okay.
Not in every
Why?
instance, but in the big ones. Nico Para's the biggest one, and they're basically portrayed in Nico Para as like borderline animals. Like they're like it would basically be like you fucking a horse. Like they're not like they can enjoy it, but is that really consent?
Okay. Enough cat girls. Enough cat girls.
I'm just saying that's how they're depicted, and I'm against it. I'm saying they can't consent.
Well, me
I
too
like how
now.
I can always mention like the one subject that further derails the stream. It's so nice.
Anyway, so the neocon Ben Shapiro types, you need to burn out of the party, Louis. Is that correct?
I don't know if it's necessarily the Shapiroites. What I want from the Shapiroite...
Humble them. Humble them.
Sure. I want them to be fucking honest with what they believe. Because I think that Ben Shapiro and the whole lot of them are fucking liars. I think that a lot of them want total open borders, whether that's trade or... human trafficking. I think they want open borders, and they're fucking liars about it.
I don't think you can say that Ben Shapiro is for open borders.
I don't
for
know.
human trafficking.
Well, he's not for open borders in Israel, but for the United States, there's a greater question to it.
Yeah, but have you considered that America is an idea?
About?
I don't know. It's his argument. That's what he'll say.
Well,
America's an idea.
America's an idea.
Well, ideas don't land ultimately with reality, and I think one of the realities we're running into is that certain types of people that we're letting in, and that are already here, by the way, as we have found out in Jersey City, don't like Jews.
Oh, who doesn't like Jews in Jersey?
Blacks.
Oof.
I did a video called Mutually Exclusive Minorities.
Yeah, I watched that. I
because-
didn't realize. All right, okay.
There are black people in the United States that think that, and this is not, like, it's not a huge number, but it is a substantive number. That,
Oh, are these the Louis Farrakhanites?
yes. They
The
think
Black Israelites, yes.
they not just them. No, Farrakhanite is not the
yeah.
same. That's Farrakhanite is much bigger. That is,
And
it's
sorry, go on.
it's not. It is a percentage of black people in the United States, and it is not an insignificant number. It's
And
a
they are-
minority, but it's
they are
not
positively woke in the same way that the alt-right is woke.
Yes.
On the question of Jewish
Yes,
people.
they
They
actively think that there is a conspiracy, like actively think, legitimately think, and this is not small people. Like there's been politicians that have been caught saying this and shit. They actively think that there's a Jewish conspiracy against blacks in the United States currently going on.
He is the greatest of all time, Louis. I mean,
I
Who was it that said that?
uh,
Someone got in trouble for saying that Louis Farrakhan's the greatest of all time. And,
is it
and
Rashid Tlaib? Did she say it?
yeah, I think someone like that. Let me.
Oh, it was the one black chick that's part of the squad. It wasn't Tlaib,
Yeah.
the other chick.
Oh no! It's Women's March leader Tamika Mallory.
Oh, okay.
So the Women's March, the massive pink pussy hat thing, founded by a Farrakhanite. So,
Yeah.
it goes quite high up. He's a very influential guy in the black community.
Yes. And
his speeches, he calls Jews termites.
Yeah, he calls them more than just that.
Yeah, but
he's a legit anti-Semite.
Yeah, he really
is.
And I'm not an anti-Semite. I'm an anti-termite. He's like, fuck it.
Well, I mean, that's somebody who
new
thinks,
leader of the alt-right.
Like, he basically thinks that like he has like a legitimate hatred towards Jews, and he thinks it's perfectly morally justified, and he will tell that to you. That's how you know someone's like quote unquote bigotry is fucking serious.
Yeah.
Like, he's not fucking around, and he's not, like, an innocent actor. Like, this is somebody that has a lot of power and influence and is advocating dangerous things. Like, he's straight up, like, he is one of the sources for this conspiracy theory from black people. Like, there's a conspiracy theory that the reason why black men are killed so often is because whites and Jews are harvesting their organs. Like, that is a no, I'm not joking. That is a widespread security or conspiracy among black people.
Can you prove that they're not?
Well, they're not harvesting fucking organs from these people.
Prove it.
There's all this weird stuff.
Checkmate, Louis.
Especially when it comes to intersectionalism, a lot of people don't realize that most minorities can't fucking stand each other and are massively racist when compared to the evil white people.
Yeah.
AI is revealing this as well. It's really amusing. Every time the AI is systematically racist against black people. Because every time they do let's do hate speech checks on, get an AI to troll Twitter, and it turns out, black people are really fucking racist, man.
Yeah.
And then the AI is problematic and needs to be reprogrammed.
I mean, like Tay, poor Tay.
Yeah. Well, not like Tay, actually.
No, not like that. These are actually they're objectively trying to measure like so-called hatred, and they're finding that it's the minorities that are engaging in it in the most. And what do they do against that? How do you target it towards only white-oriented fucking hate?
Well, you reprogram those bots, those problematic bots.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to work out. I don't think it's going to work. I think a lot of this is just kind of like... Well, they're just trying to keep a lid on the situation that, it was in Jersey City, that, you have mutually exclusive minorities. That is the problem, that you have minorities that actively fucking hate one another. And with the Jews, I don't even know how mutual it is. Like, do Jews in Jersey City really hate blacks? I don't see it. I do know that in New York City, for example, there's black men running all around the city beating the fuck out of Jews. The question is, do Jews in New York City hate them in return? I don't know. I just know that I see what I see with my own eyes. And in New York City, for the last year, this year has been really fucking bad.
Really?
Yes. Like, there's been... I haven't saved the articles because I just haven't thought about doing it, but I should have done a video on it, because I've seen at least a dozen or so articles, specifically black young men targeting Jews in New York City.
Wait, wasn't there one of the synagogues? I remember seeing this, actually. There was a synagogue attack that was a black kid who was being, helped or harbored or something by them, by the congregation there, and he then went and attacked the synagogue.
It's been from my experience at least like a dozen or so examples that I saw just on my own, just from looking on Twitter. Like, one day it's just a new article from Twitter, and it's been over and over again, just black kids on the street running after a Jew, and then basically it's you push them, you shove them, you give them a punch, you smack the head off their head, or you legit beat the fuck out of them.
The hat.
Yeah, the yarmulke. Smack the yarmulke off their head.
Yeah.
Or if they're wearing their more Orthodox Hasidic Jew, they have the big furry hat on their head. And in the case of these assaults, they range from just pushing to straight up gangbang beatdown. 5 guys beating the fuck out of some Jewish guy because he's a Jew. And it's gone
That's
completely
happening a lot
unaddressed.
in London these days as well. It's not necessarily black people, but just Jews being attacked in London.
Yeah,
That is actually happening
I don't find it too hard to believe. And the problem is that with Jews, is that people can say what they want, but I don't see what they're doing to earn a vicious beatdown in the way that it's happening. It seems like random minorities are just targeting Jews and gleefully, in many instances, beating the ever-living shit out of them.
On the underground in London the other day, there was a viral thing where this Jewish guy and his son were just sat on the underground, and some black guy starts berating them, and some Muslim woman comes over and tells him to shut the fuck up. Like, I don't even know what the problem was. You know, I'm not even sure why he was doing it. You know, it wasn't because he was a Muslim, I think. So it was just some black guy who just hated this Jew.
Yeah.
Weird. It's so odd when you get all these different kind of almost granular ethnic groups who all hate each other, and then you end up trying to house them in a city. It's so far removed from what the leftist narrative is about POCs. BAME voters.
Well, what I can't stand about the whole thing about multiculturalism is that you can go back 100 years and people talk about immigration, about we let all the whites in. You know, we had the Germans and the Polacks and all the rest, and that worked out just fine. It's like, what fucking city did you grow up around? Like, everyone talks about, we had the Polish district and the German district and the Irish district and the black district. God, they all fucking hated each other. They're on the streets battling each other. It's like, yeah, I know this isn't fucking gangs in New York, but that's based off of reality. Like, they lived in ethnic fucking enclaves, and even our parents know about them.
I love that you're banging your desk to say this.
It's very
I agree
about this.
No, but you're right. Multiculturalism does seem to have problems, yes.
I just think that it isn't a question of, well, should we have no immigration? It's like, yeah, well, I'm not an isolationist, and I'm not really a nativist. But the issue is that when it comes to it, if you open your doors too wide and things start falling off the fucking rails, it's like you have to have a time period in which that you close the doors a bit. You focus on domestic politics a bit. And you try to stymie the discord that comes from multiculturalism. Like, multiculturalism is inherently chaotic.
It's very unstable.
Yes.
If it goes too far, you end up with, again, a country.
You have ethnic battles in the streets. That's what you have.
Like London.
Yeah, like London.
That's what a lot of this knife crime is.
Well, there was always the Romanians against the Muslims. Muslims didn't like Romanians getting loud and drinking in the streets, and the Romanians had baseball bats.
Yeah, and it's happened in the United States in several instances with blacks and whites. People talk about like the Tulsa riots and that sort of thing. That was an ethnic battle. That was a black guy, I believe it was, being alleged that he did something against
raped a white woman. Yeah.
Raped a white woman. And
she was probably a thought.
Yeah, she was probably a thought, or maybe she was just groped or whatever. Yeah, we don't really know to the validity of a lot of these things, but the whites basically came in and were like, yo, we're going to lynch that dude. The police, in effect, protected him. And then the after effects of that was the whites rioted. Yeah. And it's like, well, the problem is that that's, in effect, what happens when you live in a multicultural society that is so tense. And there is mutual animosity towards both sides and disrespect mutually from both sides and mutually exclusive ethno-states from both. Although, we can give more credence, the white people should let them in more. But the problem is that, like, people say, and it is true, that 650 hasn't always been true in terms of that split, but it has long been true that blacks have been disproportionately representative in crime statistics. And can you fault white people, whether it's, 1899 or it's, 1970, and white working class people don't want to necessarily live around blacks because a couple streets over, it's the fucking ghetto.
I love that you finally arrived at Jim Crow did nothing wrong.
My thing is, I'm not trying to legitimize discrimination, but I am trying to say that bigotry that once existed, that was far more national and far more large and noticeable, and people would just say it, it exists today on a much smaller basis. And the arguments that the whites will put forward about fleeing their neighborhoods or about not wanting to move and not wanting blacks to move in, it's not fair, but it's not irrational. And I think that the way you address it is not calling every person a fucking racist. It's by talking to that person and to try to at least get them to see everyone as an individual. And when it comes to blacks, if we're going to lecture the whites, we need to lecture the blacks just the same.
That's correct.
Statistically, you're too represented in too many ways. And I'm sorry, but it's not the white man's fault that your father fucking went adios and just disappeared.
Louis Le Vau, lecture the blacks, heads on pikes.
Well,
This is quite the campaign platform you're
if we're not going to lecture the blacks, if we're not going to do that on a cultural level, then we're going to have to get rid of the Gibbs.
The Gibbs will have to. What you're talking about is basically just personal responsibility, though.
Yes. And with the Gibbs, I will say this: it will be racially fair.
Oof.
Because if the whites aren't getting the Gibbs, then the blacks aren't getting the Gibbs. No one's getting the Gibbs. Then it's just stand on your own 2 fucking feet. And it's unfortunate, but I think we're. Go ahead.
Because what will they do without like government-funded Air Jordans, though?
Well,
how will they survive?
In certain neighborhoods, I know what's going to happen.
Well, yes.
But it's not about the immediate after effects. It's about the long term. And I think that the conservatives have basically won the argument to say that not every social system, not every welfare system, but the ones that just exist that endlessly gib, those ones are not good, and they don't incentivize positive behavior. And anything that you have that's publicly given is not valued and is just abused and does not result in good effects and is responsible in large part for many of the breakdowns of the families, regardless of white, black, whatever, even, American Indian. The Gibbs are not good to the family structure. And if the family structure is what is the most positive effect of, churning out, boys and girls from being, kids into functional adults, if the family is what's producing those, not always, but largely, then that should be our focus. And what is damaging the families? What is preventing families? It is the Gibbs.
Well, on that note, I'm afraid I'm going to have to head off.
All right.
But I have no refutation for you. I believe that is accurate. It does seem that the Gibbs are doing it. But right, thanks for having me on, Lou. I've
thank you
really
for showing
enjoyed
up.
this conversation.
Yeah, thanks for letting me just crash the stream halfway through.
Yeah, I think it went down for a little bit and then came back up.
Good. But yeah, man. I'll speak to you guys later, and Merry Christmas.
Yep,
everyone.
same to you.
God bless us, everyone.
All right, well, that's the end of that. Let me disconnect from that on Discord. All right, well, I'll get through all the super chats that we didn't get a chance to get to. Matthew says, she lumps all Mexicans in with Indians and wants U.S. land return based off of blood tests and pottery rights. LOL took it up on A's channel. She's whack. I'm not sure what you mean by that. Carl says we need to see the crime statistics of the Republic versus the Empire. Oh, man. I already know which is worse. I already know which is worse. Vazinski says, I remember that I used to go to a regular alternative rock club with a hippie hipster. When these girls went in heels, I guarantee you they wanted it. Patrick says, Merry Christmas. Blessings for your families. Thank you, Patrick. Longsword of Smiting says, ooh woo daddy. Tim says, the actual spark for the American Revolution were the redcoats being sent to seize guns and gunpowder. VA is treading a very historical path here. Carl says, Virginians and anyone with a 3D printer, search for deterrence dispensed and have fun printing your freedom projectors. Opinionated one says, Virginian here, and all I have to say is 6 Semper Tyrannis. Kowser Big says, thinking about posting a full guide showing how easily it is to make an assault weapons with basic machine tools. Yeah, it's incredibly easy to make a gun. If you really put your heart into it, you can make a gun if you have the tools. And it's about $50 worth of materials. Dylan98 says, I find it funny how a state county can reject federal immigration law and it become a sanctuary state. But if a state rejected federal gun law, oh my. RZ says, how did SJWs come to be? Where they come from? They come from postmodernists. That's the easy explanation. Mighty Balzac says, I would bet money that Jank is a gun owner. Probably is. RZ says, Louis, how come you use the phrase progressive when they are regressive? Because there is no progressive regressive. There is just progressive at this point. I think you need to get rid of regressive. You can use regressive as just a derogatory term towards progressives. There are no real progressives. The real progressives are the socialists. Josiah, it cannot even possibly be illegal for Trump to ask Ukraine to help on an investigation. It's not. Especially when he's doing it through the mechanism of putting the Attorney General in charge of it. Because we have treaties with Ukraine ratified by the Senate for the purpose of investigating criminal matters. There you go, Josiah. You're completely right. Tim says, the real critical metric to watch is swing voter sentiment on impeachment. It has completely tanked in Trump's favor. It could lose Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania for Dems. Yeah, absolutely. Michael Knowles says, Cow says, Michael Knowles is great, to be honest. He sees himself as a Bill Buckley. He wants to reunite the right again. Matt says, Sargon, get Sitch on and have him justify Israel, lol. Seriously, though, set something up between Louis, Stitch, and Adam. I love those guys, but they are the epitome of leftists since they stand for Yang. I'm not sure what you mean by that. You'll have to confront him. Thanks for the support there, Matt. Sorry I didn't get a chance to read it to him. Baczynski says, why wait for 72 virgins when you can become a Catholic priest and get some now? Oh, man, Baczynski with a hot take. I'm getting calls in the background. I think it's my parents, so I'm going to have to finish this up. Cow says, can't wait for a public school system pedo scandal. Yes, I agree with that. I think that's on the horizon as well. I think it's happening a lot more than we like to admit. Lumberjack says, black Americans either don't care or hate Jews. Ben obviously open borders semi-endorses borderline slavery like California. Louis for Inquisitor. I agree. Lumberjack says, most multicultural cities are balkanized. I absolutely agree. Merry Christmas, Sargon. Your stream with Kevin was cancer. Next time you need to invite Louis on there to rip that TDS commie a new one. Trump 2020. Thank you, Steven. Zan says, do you see Bloomberg's campaign was contracting women's prison labor to make calls for him? I saw that. I don't really know how true it is, but that'd be funny if it were. And there's the last super chat is by Lumberjack, who says, blacks and Hispanics' biggest cultural drawbacks today is exalting of gangsters and cartels that I see. We need to do what we did to the Italians. I don't know, because I don't really know if the Italians ever really rid themselves of their, like, appreciation for crime films and that sort of thing. Like, some don't like it, but plenty of enough Italians did like gangster films and all that. I don't really know if gangster rap is really the forte that you have to, if you quash that you quash the bad activities. I don't think that's it. But, I guess I see your point. However, I think I'm going to have to call one of my parents back, whoever was calling me. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I guess, I think my parents and I, we might be going out. No, we can't be going out. Every place is closed. I'll have to call back my parents and see what they want. I could have swore they said we're going to go out, but I think that's another day from now. But I'm going to have to end it here, despite the fact that we're at a high amount of viewers. I appreciate everyone for stopping by. Thanks for Scrump and Sargon for stopping by. And before we cut this off, let me find it. Where is it? Let me log out. And I will put this on the screen. If you haven't already, and if you follow me, head on over to my Subscribestar account. And you can subscribe to me for as little as $1 or as much as $50, and you can help support my channel. My channel is not demonetized, but many of my videos are demonetized. Most likely this video has been demonetized. The stream, in fact, has been demonetized. And often I make exceptionally little from ads on my videos, because so often I don't get ads on my videos. So if you want to support my channel, head on over to Subscribestar and support me there, you white niggers. And for those of you that are already supporting me there, I'd very much like to thank you for supporting me on Subscribestar. And the numbers are up, but I want them to continue to go up into the near future. We need to get these numbers up some more. I used to be at 65, but right now we're at 63. I find that to be unacceptable. So get me back to where I was. Get me. Yes, Bazinski, you might still super chat me, $20 at a time. I don't care, Bazinski. Get on Subscribestar, support me, subscribe to other people. There's plenty of people now on Subscribestar. Support all of them as well. There's plenty enough other commentators I'm sure you're listening to other than me. Go support them on Subscribestar as well. Give me a goddamn dollar on Subscribestar today. That is my demand of you. But outside of that, I'd like to thank all of you for stopping by. I'd like to thank all of you that super chatted. And I believe I read every single one. Hope all of you have a Merry Christmas and a brilliant New Year. I don't know if I'll be back by then. I might be for another stream by then. We'll have to wait and see. But I have to let you guys go because I have to call back my parents and see what it is they wanted. All right, we'll talk later. Thanks, Argon and Scrump. Thanks to all of you. Subscribe to me on Subscribestar.